Okay, we're ready to go. Welcome everyone to Advisory Design Panel for Thursday, May 20th, 2021. We'll start by acknowledging that this meeting is being held on Squamish Nation traditional territory. I'd like to, at the beginning here, just welcome Luke Tyson, who is a new member at large that's joined us now. Are you out there, Luke? Have we got a video feed on you?
I'm here, yep.
Okay, great. Welcome to Advisory Design Panel.
Thank you.
Okay, my typical go-to here is to read out the procedures as we need to do. Here we go. Committee members attending the meeting electronically are required to advise the chair of the meeting of the following circumstances. A, when the committee member disconnects and or reconnects so that this can be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. B, committee members are to identify themselves when they advise the chair that they wish to be placed on the speakers list. C, with respect to a vote, committee members are only required to say nay vote. So I will ask anyone against. No statement is required if the member is in favor. D, committee members shall put the telephone or computer on mute unless they wish to speak. E, committee members shall be involved in and participate in the meeting. F, committee members shall text the CAO or the corporate officer. It says here, usually we post a number in our chat if you drop off the feed here so that you can reconnect that way. G is the meeting shall be recessed for up to 10 minutes if a technical difficulty occurs on the district side, which results in the committee member being unable to connect to the meeting. So there we go for that. Adoption of the agenda is up next, and if I could have someone move for that. I can't really see everyone here. Let me change my layout. Grid. Sorry, I'm not getting all the video feeds, so can I just have someone move for that just vocally?
Yeah, I'll move.
Is that David?
Second. Sarah second.
Sarah is second. Okay,
No, that was
anyone
Kareem.
against? Kareem, okay. Anyone against for adoption of the agenda? Agenda is adopted. Okay, so the committee minutes is next. There are two items here, so I'll do each one. Is there any discussion on the minutes taken for March 18th, 2021 meeting?
Yes, I have some amendments.
Okay,
Are you ready for me to tell you what they are?
yes, and then we can absorb and discuss and perhaps adopt them if everyone's in favor.
Sure, it's just clarification. So it's
Okay.
page 2. It says gravel pathway compact surface. It should be gravel pathway should be firm and stable.
Okay,
And then the second one was consideration to pathways on main floor. And it should be consideration given to accessible pathway on main floor.
very good.
That's it. Oh, excuse me.
Yes.
Hang on, there's another one on page 3. The cane detection on overhead protrusions should be cane detectable. And so that's anything below 2050 millimeters. And then just below that, it says floor wall etchings, and it's actually etchings or markings on the glass for people to identify. It's not on the floor or the wall.
Okay. Does anyone have any problems at all with any of those? I don't think so. They sound good to me. I'm going to add one myself just on page 2 at the bottom of the first project, DP 555. There was mention the concern that the public trail through the townhome driveway sets a new precedent in Squamish. This was identified by the applicant, and it hasn't been noted, but I would suggest that is recorded in the minutes. Does anyone else have any other changes or suggestions? No? Okay, so we'll go ahead and have someone move for adopting those minutes as revised. Sarah?
Yeah, I'll adopt them.
Okay, and a second? Kareem? Okay. Anyone against? No one against, so those minutes are adopted. So we move to the next set of minutes, which would be April 15th, 2021. Any discussion on those?
I have 2 amendments.
Okay.
Page 2,
Mhm.
it says electric outlet at stairs. It should be electrical outlets at the top and bottom of the stairs for future stair lift potential. And then the next is extending it's not resin surface, it's rubberized, accessible rubberized surfacing surrounding the boulder. And it should be surrounding the boulder and going across the lawn.
Okay.
And that's all the amendments that I've got on that one.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from the panel? No? Okay, so can I have someone to move for adoption of those minutes as amended with Sarah's suggestions? Anyone to move?
I'll move.
Sarah is moving. Second? Kareem again to second. Anyone against? No one is against. So those minutes as amended are adopted. And now we move on to business arising. And the first project is DP 556 at 37773 Cleveland Avenue. And I'll pass over to our planner, Brian Daly.
Thank you very much. I apologize, my camera is not working, so I won't have a video feed of me today, but I'll just give a brief introduction of this project and then I'll pass it over to the applicant, Chris Hunter. So
sorry, Brian, it's Asia here. You're really quiet, at least coming through my speaker. I don't know if you can get closer to your microphone or just speak up. I might not be the only one having issues hearing you. Thanks.
Is this better?
Slightly.
All right, well, I will do my best to speak up then.
Thanks, Brian.
The subject property is located at 37773 Cleveland Avenue in downtown south area of Squamish. It was previously zoned General Industrial I3 and was recently rezoned to Comprehensive Development Zone 97 to facilitate a pod hotel development. I'll just give a few points on the zoning, seeing as how it's a comprehensive development zone and a relatively new zone. The CD97 zone was based off the existing MUD 2 zoning found in downtown south. The zone allows for 100% mixed employment uses, including hotel, to facilitate the proposed development, while ensuring flexibility for future uses in the building if the hotel operation is not successful. The lot coverage allowed in the zone is 65%. The maximum height in the CD97 zone is 15.6 meters, and there is a height bonus included that exempts shared rooftop amenity spaces that meet a set of criteria. And this proposal is meeting those requirements and is taking advantage of the height bonus for an overall building height of 19.5 meters. The parking is accessed from the lane between Cleveland and 2nd Avenue. And the proponent is proposing a stacked parking lift for this development, which is something new in Squamish associated with this development. So with that, I think I will pass it over to Chris to run through the presentation. And I will be sharing my screen and flipping through the slides for him. And I noticed that there was a bit of a lag, so I appreciate everyone's patience.
Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah. Yep. Chris, you're good.
Yep.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about more tech difficulty this time around, and my web browser seems to not like any of the links. So yeah, thanks, Brian, for being the slide flipper for me. And if anybody can't hear me, just interrupt and speak up. Thanks again for your time and attention today. My name is Chris Hunter, the architect on record for the project. I'm excited to present our proposal for redevelopment of a vacant site at 373 Cleveland Avenue under the recently approved CD 97 zoning, which Brian outlined to you previous. As you mentioned, currently most lots in the downtown south neighborhood are I3 or I1 or non-conforming residential use. Next slide, Brian, which should be the aerial maps, is that right? The upper left image shows the general zoning context, MUD 2 situated south of Vancouver Street and C4 commercial to the north of Vancouver Street. There are significant block and neighborhood scale developments along the Mamcram Channel and of course oceanfront to the south. Given this, I affectionately refer to the downtown south neighborhood as the knuckle of downtown, where the community transitions from the primarily higher density commercial Cleveland Avenue zone to this eclectic mixed use neighborhood, which will begin to establish over the coming years. The site is the third parcel in from the corner lot highlighted in red, which is currently, the corner lot is a non-conforming single-family house. The adjacent 3 lots to the south have various storage uses and light industrial activity on them. While to the east, there's the dike, access trail, tidal, slough, and a 600-foot lot facing the east side of Cleveland Avenue. We are seeing a few mixed-use developments permitted throughout the downtown south neighborhood, some on Cleveland and a couple on 2nd and 3rd Avenue. The lower street elevation shows the proposed hotel development on Cleveland Avenue with what could be a future streetscape with higher density. Next slide, please, Brian. This is just a quick context street view from Cleveland and Vancouver on the top, looking south, and the lower image looking east at the lane intersection. The right-hand images are of other existing proposed larger scale developments on adjacent properties to the north. And the takeaway from this throughout the discussion of this presentation is the urban context is quickly densifying and will provide quite a different landscape than what we see on the existing streetscape. Next slide. This page shows a few precedents we have used in our discussions with the district throughout the development permit process. All of these projects embrace their small scale lot sizes, providing unique architectural programmatic solutions on tight urban lots. Our project will be a much needed provider of tourist accommodation downtown, provide lively street engagement, and a first in Squamish rooftop lounge amenity space where there will be spectacular views in all directions. The project is conceptualized as a neighborhood and community incubator that will attract other businesses, visitors, and commercial investment in the neighborhood. It is a pedestrian and bike forward thinking development which will partner with other local businesses to facilitate travel to and from Squamish and throughout the community on a bike share program. Next slide. The project is actually, we wouldn't call it a pod hotel like we have seen in other large metro cities and even one in Whistler. Instead, it is a highly curated, design-forward micro hotel, which has private guest rooms, private bathrooms, and generous windows, while providing curated amenities on the ground level restaurant and rooftop lounge and lobby. This page shows the initial branding ideas and color palette. The intent is to embrace the trend for self-check-in automated systems and encourage social interaction on the ground level restaurant, rooftop, and courtyard, which Julie will speak to further. Next slide. These massing diagrams describe our kind of design approach to the site. It's a typical single lot, 50 foot by 120 foot, highlighted in gray in the first diagram. We took direction from the MUD 2 zoning, as Brian said. Similar site coverage of between 60 and 65%, but instead of having a full width block, decided to push the massing in the 120 foot east-west direction, thereby allowing pedestrian circulation through the block to the laneway, providing a generous courtyard, south facing, and allowing all the hotel rooms to have that south aspect and views. The program is distributed over 5 floors. Ground level is the main restaurant facing Cleveland, parking and utilities and garbage. Second, third, and fourth floor in blue are the hotel rooms, and the 5th floor is the rooftop deck and amenity lobby space. We have designed this building to integrate with future developments on Cleveland Avenue, acknowledging and embracing the 0 lot line allowances in MUD 2 and most of downtown, A bold and colorful and articulated facade extends across the south courtyard and buffers an exterior fire escape stair, which will be cloaked in climbing plants and a trellis. The design move will create a continuous street facade when adjacent properties are built and provide a distinct pedestrian experience through the site. Next slide. The roof plan on the left, ground site plan on the right. You can see on the ground plan the south courtyard, which parallels the entrance into the restaurant and connects visitors to the mid-block elevator, where they would go up to the amenity rooftop space and check into their accommodations. The rear of the property provides vehicle valet parking from the lane on a 16-vehicle stacked parking system. And there's also one additional accessible stall, which would accommodate overheight vans and vehicles with wheelchair lifts. The rooftop plan shows the significant southeast facing deck and a substantial green roof on the upper roof. Next slide, please, Brian. This slide shows all the floor plans and that upper 5th floor amenity lounge space and how it relates to the southeast main terrace, as well as a smaller northwest facing deck to catch sunsets on the Townless Range. Next page. The top of the page, south elevation, is a 0 lot line condition, but makes significant effort to articulate and wrap the green cement panels around the Cleveland corner to act as an attractant, but also recognize in the near future this will likely have a similar scale mud 2 building right up against it. The lower south elevation shows the articulated series of bay windows, differentiating each hotel room and providing some proportional graphics to this long elevation. The lower landscape courtyard and restaurant will provide a great pedestrian connection through to the lane and hopefully entice some cross-pollination to businesses like Cliffside Cider on the other side of the lane. Next slide, please. The laneway elevation on the top is fairly simple, picking up similar materials from the rest of the building with some vertical batten screen cement panels and a strong white roofline band which wraps up and over the top floor. The lower Cleveland elevation facade has a lot of investment into creating a really dynamic and playful expression. These fins are fixed, not articulated, but they will vary in their angles and widths. So from a long distance view down from the north side of Cleveland, it will look more opaque. And as one passes by or walks towards the building, it will open up its views and be activated by the windows and occupants. The exterior fire exit and landscape courtyard will provide a veil-like view through that south side, and the 5th story rooftop massing is stepped back quite a ways from the front of the facade, and the height of that front parapet will align with the more typical 15.6 meter mud 2 height, which will mesh up with adjacent properties. The storefront is transparent with full height glazing and a generous covered awning over the sidewalk, and Corten steel skirt, giving a nod to the maritime context and mixed use material palette. Next slide. These are 4 renderings of the same elevations. Top left, Cleveland Avenue, showing the articulated panels, the restaurant and the fire escape. Top right is a view from Vancouver Street, showing the building in future context, partially shielded by a possible development next door. Bottom left, the south articulated bay windows of the hotel units, the car stack at the rear of the property, restaurant and courtyard on the southeast side. And then the bottom right is the laneway elevation, which is highlighted with the white south wall to roof band, which connects all the stories together in form and proportion. And that's a general run through for me. And now I think Julian is going to present landscape.
Yep. Brian, have you got our landscape drawings there?
I do. Just 1 second. I will.
Okay.
Bring them in.
Sorry, they probably take a while to load. There we go. Ground level. Oh, there's something strange going on with the trees at the front, but that's okay. So, as Chris mentioned, pedestrian access courtyard that services the restaurant on the ground floor level. Without getting into too much word salad, we've got a series of corten steel planters and benches that are designed to create social interaction. And at the edge of the courtyard space, there's a vertical steel trellis system, an image of something similar, which you'll see in the third image along there, with a planter at the base of it with native and native adaptive planting in that. Can we have the next slide, please, Brian? Oh, sorry, I should just say the street trees there. We've got aspen street trees, Swedish aspen street trees. So the sidewalk is seen as a temporary sidewalk, so the trees aren't planted at grade. These trees are actually planted in planters, but the intention is to reuse those trees. Because it's at sidewalk level, we don't have irrigation there, but we're intending on using a reservoir system within the planters, and the planters are quite large. They're 4 feet diameter planters with that internal reservoir system. So this is the slide showing the plant species throughout. This project was actually completed prior to the Fire Smart guidelines and discussion. So we would probably change the hedge planting along the side to something more like a Portuguese laurel. Now that we have that knowledge. Next slide, please, Brian. And then this is the rooftop amenity space. We've got a series of gas fireplaces and large picnic table bench seating with some, again, corten steel planters. And then next slide, please. That's the elevation of the trellis system within the courtyard space. And next one. And there's the extensive green roof with fall seed and plantings, so with an eye on stormwater management and doing all the good things that green roofs do. There you go.
Thanks very much, Julian. I gather that will be it for the presentation. And we will move to questions.
I just have a quick question, which is I wasn't able to get that more detailed landscape drawing with the plant species on the thingy, the link. Is that on there, or am I missing something? I just got kind of the more mock kind of concept plan versus the detailed plan. Anybody else having that same problem?
No, mine was fully detailed.
Okay, it's my computer. I'll figure it out. Thanks.
Okay, I will start with questions, and we will start with Kareem if you are ready with questions.
Yep. Thanks for the presentation. This is interesting and exciting. Basic question, I'm curious about the structure. Is this a wood frame building, or just what is the structure of it?
It won't be wood frame, it's non-combustible, but haven't finalized what structure will be. Most likely lightweight steel and steel. But given all the cost considerations right now, we're exploring a lot of different channels. Maybe mass timber, maybe cementitious, but no, not light framing.
Got it. Thank you.
That's all for your questions, Kareem?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, and then I'll move to Christina if you're ready with questions. Okay, I show that Christina is with us on a cell phone or a phone link, but we're not hearing you, Christina.
Yeah, John, she's just trying to unmute.
Ah. We'll give it a minute then.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Oh.
Yes, now we can.
Hello.
Okay. all that. I don't have any questions. Sorry. I'm on an iPad because I couldn't make it work on my other computer and I couldn't figure out how to do that on the iPad. So apologies for that. But
Okay.
I'm good. I don't have any questions.
Okay, thanks, Christina. We'll move to Sarah next then.
Okay. First of all, Chris, I think the project's great. I really like what you've done. I just have a number of questions. So to start with, can you verify the number of lockers that are going to be, so is there going to be 2 lockers per unit? It seems
not so
that
much. Oops, sorry. Go ahead, Sarah. Sorry.
Sorry, it just seems that there's 32 for 16 per floor. And I'm just trying to figure out like the dimensions of them and whether or not they'll accommodate like an e-bike, an e-trike, an adaptive cycle.
Haven't thought we sized them off of kind of Class A stalls from the district with the intent that there'll be both a combination of hotel owned and operated or maybe regular bikes. I'm not sure if they're going to be e-bikes yet, but that all the stalls would have access to charging. I think people are going to be bringing, both mountain bikes and city bikes and using the hotel provided bikes. A trike I haven't thought about, to be honest, size-wise and such. That would be a new sizing for me, but I would think given we have this kind of storage locker on every floor, we likely should accommodate that. I think we have 4 ADA accessible hotel rooms on each floor, so it would be nice to find out. I'd love to learn more about what type of bikes kind of help with various disabilities.
I'll give them to you in the recommendations.
Yeah, that would be great. But yeah, the intent generically is 2 stalls per unit, per hotel unit per floor.
Okay, cool. And then do you know, and I don't know whether or not this is a question for you or for Julian, because it's to do with the tables in the amenity spaces, if they have an overhang on either end?
Yeah,
Are
they
you
definitely
aware?
will. Yeah, they definitely will. I think for the restaurant as well too. Nicely, both are either at grade for the restaurant with low thresholds or accessible with the elevator to the rooftop with flush thresholds to the deck. So we'll definitely make sure there's overhang on the tables, not just on the ends, but also like mid-span is always nice too.
Sure. And then with the accessible units, the ADA units, are you proposing that these are going to be wet rooms, the bathrooms?
I think so initially, yeah. I've got to work through the kind of minutia when we get closer to building permit, but I think that was the only way we could really get a sufficient turning radius and clearances and think about the shower. So yeah, that was my thinking right now.
Okay, cool. And so then you haven't sort of got to where you think a shower bench might be, holes might be for that shower, not that deep yet?
Yeah, not hugely specific to that, other than just looking at making sure we have enough space for those 4 units per floor, and that we could make that wet room and the entrance doors work as best we could, automated openers and such, but not specifics like that yet. No.
Okay, cool. And then the washrooms that are on the amenity level, are those meant to be accessible washrooms?
Yeah, I think they would. We've got to work through, depending on how it works out with occupancy loads up there, how many washrooms we have on that floor versus like a floor below. I have a feeling we might spill over to a floor below. So how that gets distributed, I'm not quite sure yet, but definitely just based on building code and occupancies for a liquor licensed establishment, we would have accessible bathrooms for sure.
Okay, cool. And then I'm pretty sure, but I just wanted to confirm that the seats that are going to be on the rooftop deck, they're around the fires, those aren't fixed in place, are they? They're movable?
No, they are
No,
movable.
movable.
Yeah. Okay, great, cool. Thanks. That's all my questions.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to go next to Carlos, if you're ready.
Yep, thanks. Thanks for the presentation. I guess my only question, Julian, is how does the green roof function with the new district bylaw regarding runoff? What's the
So the green roof systems that we utilize don't utilize they utilize green roof engineered green roof soil, so it doesn't have the same nutrient content as garden blend soil. So the problem actually comes when contractors put garden blend soil on roofs because it's got too much nutrient content in it. It washes off, and that's when it creates the algal blooms, etc. Green roof soil, actual green roof soils specific to Zinco system, which is the one that we specify, doesn't have that same issue.
excellent? That was my only question. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Carlos. And Farzan, would you like to go next?
Sure. Thank you, John. Thank you for presentation. I just a couple of questions about the fins that you mentioned, Chris. What are they made of?
Sorry, I missed which part of it were you asking what it's made out of?
The fins. The fins on elevation.
The fins on the Cleveland elevation, there'd be metal, most likely a bent aluminum powder coated. So there'll be most likely a two-piece kind of fin. Think of it like a V in plan. So we'll vary how much that V is, obtuse or acute to get variety out of it.
Right.
But they'll be powder coated metal.
And it is provided, basically the function is to provide variety to elevation and color. Why is it there?
Yeah. To create some unique color and articulation and shadow, and obviously a bit of privacy for vehicle lights, like coming up and down Cleveland eventually when it gets built out to its capacity, just providing a bit of shading and privacy. A little bit of weather protection because they're about a foot out from the actual windows, but for the most part, really giving a strong brand identity. Again, noticing this is going to be the first building quite visible from, as the north end of Cleveland. We really wanted the color to pop and for it to be playful and be an attractant for people to come down there.
Right. And would you please tell me about the parking? I didn't get it exactly how it works.
Yeah, it's a big part of the rezoning. It's a European car stack system. It is a valet-oriented system. The branding push of where this hotel fits in the market is very much public transportation, shuttles, bike-oriented. But the reality is we know some people are going to come and they're going to be charged a premium to bring their vehicle, but it will be valet parked. So one car would park on the bottom. It would lift up, so you could fit a full-size SUV on either level, but most likely on the lower level below it, and basically be shuffled.
And how long would it take to move one car up, do you know?
I don't know an exact time, but quite efficiently. This system's been around in Europe and especially Germany for well over a decade. So I think there'll be a learning curve, obviously, but we were sure to work with the supplier directly, multiple conversations. They have a showroom up in the valley to be sure, people are going to be trained and understand it. And I think it's a good opportunity for these small lots in the district to really vet, this type of system.
I know because I worked with these companies actually from Germany.
Perfect.
We need to check the timing for these things because they take a long time to take it up, and it blocks the access for every car until they go up and then make the room for the next one.
Well, I think that's why the valet was the key part to it. It's not like we're expecting people to be coming and going and shuffling these. There'll be some parameters set around, timing and such.
Right. Okay. And it works, do you think, with the wood frame building? Or this part of it would be concrete?
Sorry, it would work with what?
This part of the construction, I assume, would be concrete, right?
Yeah, it would be concrete on the base and suspended slab for sure, and then whatever is above that might go to steel or lightweight steel. But we're assumed no matter what's on level 2 to 5, the ground floor will be suspended slab and concrete. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, John. No question.
Thank you, Farzan. Amy, would you like to go next?
Sure. don't have any questions. I just wanted to say I love these kinds of projects where there's lots of shared amenities and lots of open spaces for people to socialize and integrate. So it's really cool. A very interesting design.
Thanks, Amy. We'll go next to Luke, your first go, and I'm just going to point out, Luke, you've probably watched the meetings in the past, but I just want to make sure you know that we try to save the comments for the next round. And so this is just for questions only at this point. So have a go, please.
No problem. Yeah, thank you, Chris and Julian, for that great presentation. Again, it's really nice to see a project such as this coming into Squamish, and I appreciate your efforts on this. I think it looks really good. Yeah, my questions are basically, it's for Chris just to start with. Could you further outline kind of the narrative of someone using this hotel and how basically if a typical user is going to arrive with a car, how would they actually use the space? Obviously, they would pull in through the laneway. I'm just trying to understand a bit more about the entry and how that's designed and site planned.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question, Luke. Nice to have you on the AVP. I think I'll start by saying that the hope is, and the drive of the hotel is, will actually arrive by shuttle, and that's been in discussion with planning to have a pullout on the rather informal kind of Cleveland, the dike side of Cleveland right now. So there'll be a dedicated space for shuttles, like the Sea to Sky Connector, Shred Shuttle, things like that to pick people up and drop them off. And they would walk with their bikes or without to the luggage through that side courtyard to the elevator, where there'll be a self check-in, much like you would on Airbnb or an August Lock type system, to allow them into the elevator and up to the rooftop, which is actually considered the lobby from a convenience or check-in standpoint. They'd likely be met by some sort of host, but for the most part, it'll be automated check-in, and then they'd get likely their code to go down to their floor level, access to the storage locker, and access to their room. I think for the vehicles, most likely there would be, I mean, this is a little bit, it's more operations, but I would think they would get predetermined time to check in and directions of how they would access the drop-off, most likely at the lane, and be greeted by a valet who would park, and then they would similarly walk to the midpoint of the building and up the same elevator to that top floor, or maybe hang out in Jules's great courtyard and have a drink.
Okay, thank you. The other one would be, I guess there's a couple of questions about your materials. You mentioned this the cementitious panel on the building that's composing most of the cladding. Do you have any idea of like what type of cementitious panel? Is it like a Swiss Pearl, or is it a Hardy kind of thing?
Haven't committed yet. You know, it's obviously going to be price driven. We'd love to see some like a high density panel, given the height of the building.
Yeah.
And the longevity of it being a commercial building. And so far, a lot of the choices, like originally we had wood, true cedar battens on the front, and there's been a shift to go to the aluminum foil-faced battens for longevity and low maintenance. So no commitment as of yet, but of course, we'd love to see a durable, high-quality product like Swiss Pearl.
For sure. And then the rusted steel, is that intended to be actual weathering steel, or were you thinking more high-pressure laminate?
No, hopefully not high-pressure laminate. Probably weathering steel, or we've had pretty good success with regular steel and doing like an acid pre-rust on it and a clear coat. Corten's like super expensive right now, so yeah, both on Fergie's and then our little one on loggers, we did regular steel rusted, and that's been pretty good so long as it's not seen a ton of weather. Whereas Jules's planters being out in the open, I think Corten's the right call for those, so they're not brushing off on people. But definitely real rusted steel.
Awesome. And then my last comment would just be could you just explain a bit further the rationale between the north and the south elevation? It's great how playful this project has got with the different colors. But I do know on the south elevation, which is exposed to the courtyard, you've chosen one particular kind of color. Is there any, could you just like illuminate me on the reason for that?
So on the south, we have a couple of colors. We've got kind of the really strong floor plate bands, and then we've got a recessed green panel. And then I think it's more about the articulated, if you look in the floor plan, there's quite a large projecting bay window. So it's more about shadow play, I think, on that really nice, like beigey green color. And then obviously the predominant view is going to be landscape from there from a pedestrian standpoint versus, I think, the front facade, you know, you're getting public view down the street and interaction with the urban spaces, whereas in that courtyard, you're going to be really just looking up or seeing that from the fire escape. We kind of wanted it to be a little calmer and more about shading and privacy than being too playful there.
Great. Yeah, thank you. That's all my questions.
Thanks, Luke.
Cheers.
Thank you, Luke. Catherine, are you ready for questions?
Yep, thanks. I have no questions. Thanks. Looks like a good project.
Thanks very much. Okay, and then last but not least, David.
Hi there. Yeah, Luke actually ticked off most of my questions, which is awesome. So, but I did just want to elaborate one. The hotel management, Luke touched on a little bit. Is there going to be permanent staff there, like a permanent valet sitting there 24 hours a day, or how is that managed?
I don't think I want to comment too much on that. It's a bit outside, like, you know, my role and development permit kind of comments, but my understanding is yes, there'll definitely be staff, albeit, you know, the trend is for a little more of an automated check-in system, whether that's for keys and timing and payment and such. But of course, they'll be in a hotel pretty intensive for cleaning and having the restaurant be under the guise of the hotel. It's not a like third-party restaurant as well as the top floor. I mean, there'll definitely be significant staff there. So I'm not sure of the ins and outs, but short answer would be yes. Okay.
Yeah, it's just really dependent on the being able to make the parking work with my sort of DP kind of question. So, and yeah, I think that was all my questions really. Everything else was asked. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thanks, David. I have no questions at this point, and just throw it out to the panel if anyone else has any remaining questions at all.
Quick one. I just have a real quick one. Sorry, and I just can't get the setup in front of me. Chris, what's your ground floor commercial height, floor to ceiling?
Let me just check for you. We increased it to fit the car stack. I'll come back to you if you don't mind.
No, for sure. Yeah, and just subsequent floors too, like the average ceiling height on the hotel's side as
about
well.
10 feet on the hotel side, and we're roughly 12 feet on the ground level.
Right. So I guess the only consideration, I'm a huge advocate for mass timber, and so if you were to use that, you might just lose some of that head height, which might not be as desirable.
Yeah, the plates are pretty thin. We're planning for like a drop, so that's clear. That's with like a 1 foot or 1'6" drop on all those for mechanical. So yeah, I'd love to see mass timber. Obviously, the cost of wood is driving us away from it, unfortunately. So we are looking at some hybrid steel and cementitious like precast systems from Europe. Yeah, it's all up in the air right now with the costing, but I would equally love to see it. I think we also looking at the actual hotel pods, hotel rooms being prefabricated as well to reduce site time and site disruption.
Right. So in that case, you tend to lose a little bit of height on both the ceiling and the floor, actually.
Yeah, a little bit, but we
fabricated.
We plan for kind of service floors in the whole thing. So yeah, but I think the key for us was 10 foot clear, hopefully in the hotel rooms, and high enough on the ground floor to have a really serviceable commercial space and fit that car stack system.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else? Last questions? Okay, we'll move to comments, and then I'll start with Kareem once again for comments.
Yes, thanks again for the presentation. As I mentioned, I think this is exciting. I'd like to see more more of these projects. No comments from me. Good luck.
Okay, thanks, Kareem. Christina, for comments?
Hi, thanks. Yes, I agree with everyone else about I just think it's a really interesting and innovative project, and will just add to the sort of eclectic neighborhood that it's situated in. I really like all of the site elements. I think they support this pod or mini hotel idea as a very forward, sort of almost futuristic kind of idea. I think that the planting scheme is appropriate and simple and supports that. I really like the use of the lighting in the linear track lighting and the paving, and the use of a green roof is a really great idea. And I just think overall it's very well thought out, and I think it will be an iconic structure down in that area. Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you, Christina. And we'll go next to Sarah, please.
Hi there. Yeah, again, as I said earlier, I think this project's great. It's very exciting, and I like the attention given to the accessibility. I just have a few comments. So one of them is to do with the precedence images that you showed of the beds. They look great, but I just want to caution you to be cognizant that the accessible beds, you can't have too far of a gap from the wood around the base of the bed to not be able to get close to the mattress. So just pay attention to making sure that you're getting the right heights, and that they're going to be easy to transfer into. With the bathrooms, I would consider switching the location of where the sink is to be beside the toilet, and then you can have a corner for the shower. It might make it easier to sort of have a little bit of a shower curtain to protect somebody's wheelchair from not getting wet in the wet room. Encourage you to have a flip down shower bench, and then be really considerate from that location that if you're seated on the bench, you need to be able to operate the controls for the shower, have a shelf to put your shampoo, etc. on. So just to be sort of cognizant of that, as well as have grab bars, and to not put a grab bar behind the back bench. This gets done quite often, and then you can't lean against the wall properly because you've got a bar digging into the middle of your back. So just to be cognizant of these things as you're going forward. The lockers, it would be interesting to see whether or not you could have any of them to be kind of, if they could be reconfigured to be that if there's two lockers, if they could be configured to be one larger locker if somebody needs it for a larger bike. An adaptive e-bike is about 34 inches by 80 inches, and they tend to weigh about 50 pounds. So they're quite a heavy beast, but are becoming more and more in use because it allows people of all abilities to access, the many trails we've got around here. So just to be thoughtful of that. I would encourage you on the timber benches, which I think are beautiful and lovely, is to potentially maybe add one or two arms that would go across the bench. And I'm thinking specifically about the bench that's most westerly. I mean, though there will be probably people in the restaurant most of the time, I just think that could be somewhere that people are going to try and grind that bench in with their skateboards, and that the armrest would do two things. It would potentially provide a skate stop, as well as, if somebody needs just a hand up to get them up from the seated position. And what else have I got here? And
Sarah, I think you're on mute by accident.
There we go.
Yeah.
Now I'm off. Sorry. This is more of an operational thing, but if somebody's coming in with an accessible van to park in that accessible parking spot, they're likely going to need to park that vehicle themselves because they've got to put a side lift out to unload of the vehicle. So just to plant that seed in the operator's mind that that's probably what's going to need to happen. And yeah, otherwise, I think it's a fantastic project. Love the colors, love the fun. I think it's great. So thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. And we go next to Carlos, please.
Yeah, awesome. Not a ton of comments. I think this is really well thought out and highly supportable. So that's all you'll get from me. But great job.
Thank you, Carlos. And Farzan, next.
Thank you. Yes, I also think it's a nice project. Well done. Thank you for presentation, and don't have no comment. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Farzan. And Amy, next, please.
Thanks. Yeah, you did mention at the beginning of your presentation that this is in a really kind of eclectic part of town. It's you know, a lot of artists and creatives in that area, and so I would just encourage you to consider engaging with them, perhaps in some public art capacities, just to kind of keep the spirit of that particular block alive. But yeah, beautiful project, very interesting idea.
Great, thank you, Amy. And Luke, next, please.
Okay. Yeah, again, really great project. I think the colors, Chris, are looking really good, especially kind of complementing the branding, very playful, and great to see that reflected in the landscape plan. I think that's really nice to see that brought down to the ground plane, which kind of ties the thing through as a whole. My kind of one comments about colors, I guess, would probably be that I couldn't see quite what was proposed at the entry there, but to speak to again, like as people arrive on here, it's maybe it might be somewhat difficult for people when they're arriving to be able to see where the actual entry is, especially with it being a door and not like a big lobby. But perhaps that could just be, or how already has been resolved in materials or color or even just branding. The overall formal alignment of the building form, I think that's great. I like that it's kind of aligned to the DP that's already existing in the neighboring site. It's nice to see that being aligned because although this is an eclectic area, things can also get messy when everything comes to make a whole. It's nice for those to at least align, even though the characters might be different. Material wise, to kind of go back to my comment, I think that like even if you went with something such as hardy panel on the south where it is right on the property line and it eventually will get covered up, I think that's okay, just to make that comment to planning. However, it might be nice if you were to use a better quality materials on the south, especially where that's set back in the courtyard. Totally sold me on your shadow play there, Chris. I think that's actually a really nice idea. It'd look really nice as the sun comes around and hits those angled walls. There's definitely not much need for multiple colors there. However, I think if you're going to use a product there, it should be a bit higher of a better, like a half decent quality, because sometimes hardy requires a lot of flashing to finish that off, and it could potentially ruin like what you're trying to achieve there, especially in considering that the concept is so pure. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it really. The only thing that I would really comment on is like this again with the louvers kind of things that you've got going on facing east. It might be better to, instead of having a horizontal green banding like you have, to make it black to maybe help these bandings pop out. Sorry, the louvers pop out a bit better, especially when you end up spending quite a lot of money and putting these things on a building. It's always nice to make them pop and feature better. And that would be it. Yeah, overall, I think it's a great project, guys. Well done.
Thank you, Luke. Catherine, would you like to make some comments?
Yeah, I echo a lot of what's been said. It's a great project. It's fun with the colors, and I also really like the landscape design. I think it's appropriate, and it adds a significant element of plant material in different ways, and also the seating arrangements and the lighting augment the project. So yeah, I'm 100% supportive of it. The one thing I will say, just an anecdote, which is funny enough, my mom lived in a building that had one of those car lifts that brought cars up and down. And I'm sure they worked out the technology, but they had to have a 24-hour valet because it regularly malfunctioned. So cars got stuck in it. So it's maybe they've worked out the technology. But my other reason I support it is I think over time we're moving towards electrification of cars and self-driving cars. So to put in a whole bunch of parking and create more concrete is not a great idea. So hopefully the lift system will be seamless. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Catherine. And David, please.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I think it's a great looking dynamic project. Great addition, aligns well with all the DPA guidelines. I echo most of Luke's comments about the screens. My only two comments were to maybe urge staff to ensure that the screens are a more robust, high quality material on that Cleveland side, so that they don't bend or produce noise in the wind, and that they are as strong as the elevations are showing. Would also just want to ensure that the parking shown was available given the column layouts. I noticed some of the columns seem to be in front of the parking, but I'm sure that will be worked out. And yeah, excellent to see some color and uniqueness building in this neighborhood. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, David. And okay, that's everyone. And I'll just say a great project, Chris and Julian. Looks great to me. I can't wait for some different function down there, which this provides. This is great. Any last comments from anyone out there? No? Okay, so we'll go into potential recommendation. I'll read out the 4 recommendations and then we'll discuss. Recommendation A is that the advisory design panel supports the project as presented and does not need to see this project returned for further review. B, that the advisory design panel supports the project as presented and would like the applicant to work with staff to resolve the following recommendations. C, that the advisory design panel supports the project as presented and would like the applicant to resolve the following recommendations and return to present the revised project. D, that the advisory design panel does not support the project as presented for the following reasons. So discussion on which item or suggestions?
I would maybe say A, because I think there's comments, but there's nothing that necessarily needs to be resolved per se.
I agree with that. Anyone else?
My only comment is that it with the lockers do need to be able to accommodate a wider bike or sit ski. So, whether or not, I mean, Chris is hearing this, maybe A is sufficient.
Yeah.
I would think so for one point. So can I have someone move for recommendation A?
David.
David, and a second?
Sarah will second.
Sarah will second. Fantastic. Anyone against? And I've been asked to give it more time, but I would suggest that nobody is against. So we've adopted recommendation A. Very good. Thank you very much, Brian and Chris and Julian.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time.
Great. Okay, so at this point, it's now 3:05, so we'll take a 10-minute recess and then come back at 3:15. We're moving to the second item of business, which is DP 565, the Canyon Project. I'm just going to note at the start that Christina Sellen will be recused as she is on this project. And then I'll hand over to our planner, Carrie Hamilton.
Hi everyone, my name is Carrie Hamilton. I'm a planner at the District of Squamish, and I'm presenting to you today DP 000565, and it is for the Squamish Canyon project. This project is located off Powerhouse Springs Road, which is off the Mamquem Service Road and access through Highway 99. And it is a commercial recreation ecotourism use. It was rezoned in March 2020. It was one of the last public hearings we had before COVID lockdowns, and this project falls under DPA 3 Universal Guidelines and DPA 1 Environmental Protection. It'll be subject to those design or the development permit guidelines that I had in the table there, and the CD96 regulation, which I speak to in my report a bit as well. This hasn't been presented to the advisory design panel yet, and staff is just seeking, we highlighted about 4 comments, seeking some guidance on. One of them is about the parking landscaping and just the general parking design. That parking design has shifted a bit since rezoning, and it's still in flux and shifting, so staff is still currently reviewing that. And we'd love to use this opportunity for the panel to comment on the parking design that is proposed in your package today. They have also added a new location for parking, which would require a variance to support that. So wanted to get the panel's thoughts on the new location that's proposed as well. I provided an image of that in the report if you want to know what I'm speaking to. And then staff would also like some comments around the play area that's proposed in the tree lounge area. It's got a number of different levels and different amenities in there, and would love to get this panel's comments on that design. And lastly, we'd love to get some comments around the building design that's being proposed. Generally, planning are supportive of everything that has been proposed, but would love to use this opportunity for the panel's comments. And that concludes my opening presentation. I'll hand it over to Robin Cherry, who is, I guess, or you are the applicant, and I suppose you are presenting for us today.
Hey, thanks, Gary. That's correct. Sorry for the delay, guys. Quickly, I'd love to screen share for this, but is that just the share button there? I have to open system preferences for that there and just allow it, I guess.
Yeah, I think if you press the share button, you have the presenter stick now. So you just press the share and then you press the screen as to what you'll be sharing.
Screen recording. So Zoom. That should do it, I think. Oh, that's the one. It says I have to quit and reopen to be able to share my screen. 1 second here.
The fun of virtual meetings, eh?
Hi, Carrie. Do you have Robin's presentation? And if he comes back on, can you tell him that you can run it as well if he has troubles again?
I don't.
I'm here. You guys got me?
We can see
Yes,
you,
we do.
Robin. Yeah, and now we can see that you're starting to share your screen.
Perfect.
All right. Has everyone got my screen?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we do.
I apologize for that. Okay, so I'd like to start by saying thank you to the ADP Council for taking the time to offer insight and comment to this amazing project. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of an intro just to set the theme, but not take up too much time. We can go into great detail as to why behind this project, as it's quite multi-layered to the solutions it is trying to be part of in the initiatives, but we don't have time to cover that this afternoon. But as an intro, one of the ideas and directions behind the project was to take an area slated for logging past industrial space and a bit of a recreation junction and show how preserved green space, proposed visitor infrastructure, recreation activity, industrial and logging area, and a proposed community hub could be kind of melded together and coexist, creating a much needed amenity. For this, our design reflects the elements of our past, current, and future. The locally sourced timbers and recycled materials in part of the character of the project are wood and steel boardwalks, converted shipping containers, forest lounge, and children's play area. We will take local art. Hello? Sorry? We will take local art and culture, Squamish industry, past logging, Squamish history, Squamish First Nations, our extreme recreation of Squamish, and have that shine through and in our structures, experience, and our educational programming. Surrounded by cut blocks and power lines, we took to replant. We will look at to replant and create habitat enhancement and landscape in the area in a natural way, while allowing the natural space to grow around us. And the structures and the features will be melded to the forest, and we will become stewards of that land. Great time, energy, and design survey and thought has been implemented into integrating the project around the trees and the landscape, having the boardwalks and the forest lounge wind through the forest with the trees growing through it. Drawing inspiration from our visits to small mountain towns in Austria and Bavaria, the Squamish Canyon will be a front country activity for visitors, a pit stop for local recreationalists, and all-weather gathering space for our locals. This project is striving to be leaders in sustainability and exciting, thought-provoking education and information in a place that will connect our visitors and locals to the land, showing we can be different. We can do different things with our forests that benefit our economy, community environment, while keeping the forest intact. So the location is perfect for this type of project. The MFSR turnoff on and Highway Junction is central and highly visible, where visitors will be able to see a tasteful sign of timber and steel with style and color to flow with the structures and the signage of the Squamish Canyon. Visitors will travel 3 kilometers up the Mamcombe Forest Service Road, where an upgraded road conditions, safety signage, and lower speed limits has been approved by the province. Visitors will approach the Powerhouse Springs Road, make a left. They will be greeted by another sign similar to the entrance in the style and material, directing our visitors north for another 2 kilometers to reach the Squamish Canyon parking area and their destination. Can people see my toggle on there as well? My little arrow?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So our traffic, upon almost reaching the end of the Powerhouse Springs Road, visitors will see parking on the left with multiple entrances and exits and directional signage. In this zone, we will be bringing the speed limit down from 50 kilometers an hour to 30 kilometers an hour. When reaching the north end of the main parking area, so right in here, visitors will be greeted with a parking attendant to direct them into a parking area and drop off and turn around during our busier times and potentially full time. Visitors will be directed by signs to the walking path. So on the inside, along the forest edge here, to head towards the entrance. So visitors will follow the signs to the main entrance or the public washrooms, which are a little further up. Up in here. or head across the crosswalk towards the entrance of the Squamish Canyon. Well, you will also notice that we have the exit close by here. One of the ideal reasons for this project location was to give our visitors the entire forest bathe, easy stroll on boardwalks and end up safely right back where their vehicles were, but not having to retrace their steps. The exit area is also an entrance for our visitors that are only here to use the Forest Lounge and the children's play area, which is why we have widened that section of boardwalk to 8 feet from the Forest Lounge to the exit. So entrance location is a junction point for kayakers, slackliners, climbers, mountain bikers, trail runners, dog walkers, and much more. In kind of a Euro Mountain fashion, having a cafe in the forest around these recreation sites is a desired, feature lacking in Squamish, we feel. Not only will it be creating a great experience for our visitors, but also our local recreationalists in the area. With washrooms and locally sourced refreshments outside the entrance at the small cafe stand, the entrance will have a small terrace-style seating area surrounded by third-growth forest. This is a forest that our staff will be contributing to increasing the healthy growth and diversify the native species in that section. Once a wood waste zone for logging, then a concrete batch area for staging for the power plant across the river. This will be a great revitalization of this zone. Having staff washrooms and waste receptacles will cut down and control the illegal fires, dumping in human waste, and the camping in this area. So number 8, our structures are small refurbished shipping containers, bringing the industry and the docks of Squamish into the eclectic feel of this project. That is, the structures will be trimmed with timber accents to complement the boardwalks throughout the forest and tie it to our logging history. The exterior walls will be a mix of living walls and roofs to help them blend into the forest with local murals and Squamish First Nation art, along with wood cladding and exposed container steel, finished in a charcoal black to tie in with the railings of our boardwalks and the entrance signs. Cafe at the entrance. Our entrance cafe will be available for all users and visitors to the area, not just the ones using the park. A small walk-up structure, keeping the theme of our outdoor space and structures. We are working hard to make all our facilities low to zero waste. So the boardwalk entrance will have a turnstile entrance after you've kind of passed the cafe. This will be a timber boardwalk with black netting fill in between the railing and the decking. Educational storyboards that will kind of evolve and revolve around our programming will be stationed throughout the entire boardwalk and project. As people walk down the boardwalk here, right here will be their first glimpse, and we've changed from third growth forest at this point and gotten into our second growth. And this is a high point here. It's pretty unique, as we had one of the first railroads of Squamish come through this back area and blast through it. And this little section that created this outcrop is the blast pilings from that first railroad that went up there and then had a trestle bridge that went across on the upper part of the river. Getting up into this section, this is where we also start to get our steep decline down towards the canyon walkway. And just to show you, this is sort of the base of just the connecting boardwalks. It'll be a large rough cut timber with black mesh netting on the inside. And we've kept this theme throughout the boardwalk all the way through the canyon walkway. I'll get into that. It obviously has a steel-based structure and a few different designs, but the netting that we put in between was something we wanted to do because it added transparency to the forest and took away the linear lines of kind of, or made sure there wasn't as many linear lines and allowed the transparency of the organics to kind of come through back and forth through that. And then the rough cut timber is just really kind of goes with the theme and allows durability, and we like the look of that. Yeah. Stairs down to the canyon walkway. So in this section here, it's quite a distance, and we've really done our best to make this project as accessible as humanly possible. When we first started this project, we thought, how can we make it fully accessible? And the cost and the footprint that went into that was massive. And so, you know, we've got some future things I can talk about as to parts we have made accessible and what our future endeavors are. But what we have done is gone so far as to make the stairs a low rise of 5 inches and a long run of 18 inches. Because what we wanted to do when people were going through here is not get exhausted, not be scared of steep stairs. We wanted a grandmother and even a small 2-year-old child to be able to kind of run through here, not be able to go through any sides of the railing because of, that's why we use the black mesh as well too, from top to bottom. And then have an easy stroll, but as you're on those stairs, be able to take in the viewscapes and not be looking at your feet, and catering to the widest berth of demographic as we could and ability. The canyon walkway itself, it's been quite an engineering feat to what we've been doing. We've been working on this for many years and doing survey and geotechnical work and back and forth and design back and forth. And we've had 2 of the best bridge builders in BC, if not farther reach than that, really be lobbying and wanted to be on this project. And it's been great to work with both of them. And we definitely had our challenges, but we feel we're going to create something pretty spectacular and a bit of a legacy for Squamish. And once again, carrying through, making this walkway as easy as possible, but adding a level of excitement, capturing viewscapes, but not basically taking over the natural beauty that's already there. So pulling back and letting the trees come through our decking, using open spaces when we can. And basically, the only trees we'll be taking out of this area are a few deadfall, and everything else has been designed around every single tree and width that's been surveyed in this this entire section. And that's one thing to note, and we're quite proud of the entire project, except for some of the third growth at the very entrance. Trees have been surveyed and will be kept in place and come through every structure you see, or the structure goes around it. So the actual walkway, the canyon walkway itself, is a combination of galvanized steel base and galvanized post railings with rough cut timber, very large decking on its side, hand railing, and black netting to fill again. It will take our guests along the canyon walls beside 2 waterfalls peeking in and out of the forest in key locations, careful not to ruin the viewscapes, as I mentioned, and the trees coming through and going around them. There'll be a lot of spots to take in the beauty, listen to the river and relax. Once again, we're going for a stroll here in a forest bay. This isn't about exercise. This is about kind of connection. One of the aspects, a very difficult part of this project was to accomplish getting underneath the bridge that already exists there, and also keeping our guests engulfed and kind of protected as they made their way up to the bridge. And that's why we've covered with a timber roof, and we're going to try and make this a living roof. We're going to start and see if it's in the budget, but that's the route we eventually want to go, and we've actually engineered to the weight of doing that. But as we all know, this is about 1 kilometer of wood and more, and we all know what's happened in the wood sector right now as far as costs, and our project costs have gone through the roof because of that. But this section is pretty unique. And coming underneath that bridge has been difficult to say the least, but we've like I said, we've had some of the best engineers on this, and we've come up with some pretty cool designs. And as you go onto that bridge, as you can see, we drop you down, it overhangs and almost creates a tunnel effect. So what we wanted to create in this project was give you multiple effects, from in the forest to free span bridges, to tunnels, to over waterfalls, to exciting areas, but keep the safety and accessibility maximized the entire time. And once again, you can see the grade of the style of stairs we have put here for small steps and good viewing.
Hey, Robin, I don't want to interrupt, but you just 5-minute warning.
Oh, really? 5 minutes? Okay. All right. Uh-oh. Okay. So coming off that, I'm not sure. So I'm gonna have to move over to this. It looks like some of the slides didn't carry over with that. Still got my screen there?
Yep.
Yes.
So yeah, so coming off of that canyon walkway, guys, there'll be one more big viewscape that looks back at the falls. You'll continue on the boardwalk again, make your way back into the forest, and then come to our forest lounge, which Carrie touched on. This is a multi-use space, very unique to the region, where we'll be able to hold hold our artisans, have a place that people can relax, local food and beverage, educational area for the school groups we want to bring through here, and a children's play area. So, let me start. So the forest lounge itself will be sheltered under the rainforest treetops, but it will also have sail canopies way up in the trees to make this an all-weather space for our community, something that we are lacking here. So we find this another unique feature for everyone to still be outside, but and still allow the moisture to come through, but still have coverage throughout the area. This is also a place where we want to bring and have our local artists that can't afford a brick and mortar store be exposed and cycle through this area, almost like a smaller farmer's market, but not quite in this region over here. Small purposed area for, once again, local artists, probably a small musician, washroom, staff area. This is all one-way traffic coming in and two-way over this side. So if you want to retrieve your kids, you can come over here and grab them without having to go through the one-way traffic here. Another educational area. And one of the ways we designed this on this hillside, we really wanted to kind of meld two things, was to be able to have our visitors or parents be able to have a coffee up here or something and be able to watch their kids in a safe kind of enclosed area and potentially watch an educational talk that might be going on at the same time. And there's kind of another view of it, which I'm pretty sure you guys had. There's one of our structures, keeping theme with what we talked about before at the entrance. An artisan storage container we'd like to have in there. We've got placed on there. Our washrooms keeping theme as well too. Staff area is in that same location. Here you can see the trees we've surveyed in this zone, and we've designed everything around that. And there's some good growth in there, which is fantastic. And then how the sail canopies will kind of cover in certain sections. On the way out, we've got about an 8-foot wide boardwalk. This allows the two-way traffic to flow freely. And then coming out your exit, and one of the cool things is you're right back basically 30 yards from where you started safely. The whole experience is about 1.2 kilometers long. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell, guys. I mean, there's a lot of layers to this, but that's the best I could do in 20 minutes. So do I have time? We got time to pass over to Christina for a quick landscape breakdown as well?
I've got about 2 minutes left, so.
Oh, no.
It's okay. We'll give her some time if you want to just
I can be quick. I can be quick. Robin, do you have my drawings?
Yeah, I got the screen up for you right now. Do you see it?
Okay. All right. So so just very quickly, the landscape design for this is really more of just not messing with what's already there, because what makes this project so great is that it's like a walk in the woods. It's forest bathing. and the natural environment is what we're really championing here. The landscaping that we are actually putting in has more to do with directing flow of traffic and wayfinding, I would say. You know, we're using it in the parking area to delineate spaces between stalls. We're also using it to show that we're parking on an angle because it's all gravel, so we don't really have any way of directing that otherwise. We're using some bump out kind of treatments to indicate traffic calming and to show where the one pedestrian crossing is across the road. And we're trying to use mostly native materials. If you look at the page 6, I think it shows our planting inspiration. We want to use as much sort of, you know, meadow planting. We do have a large septic field that we're trying to make use of, but we can't really put anything on it in terms of trees or any larger shrubs. So we're looking at grasses and meadows and infusing with color with perennials and bee grass. Future phases may include green walls and green roofs. And we'll probably do some seasonal container planting. Might even use those in the parking area. And then entry treatments, we're looking for color and perennials, grasses. Again, Robin really likes Japanese maples, so we're trying to get a few in there at their entrances, but otherwise mostly vine maples, Douglas maple, that kind of thing. And I think that pretty much covers it. In terms of site furnishings, again, it's pretty minimal, bear-proof trash. Looking at a comprehensive signage plan, there's a natural play area that comes as it's a package kind of play area, bicycle racks, and we are, one of the variances that we're looking at, and I'll speak to this, is that we don't have space for a planting buffer between the parking and the road. And in place of that, what we're hoping to use is something like a post and rope situation or a cedar rail fence or something to delineate between the parking area, the road, and then pedestrian circulation. I think that pretty much covers it.
Well done.
That's great. Thank you very much, Robin and Christina. That's a great look at this project. We will go into questions right away, and I'm going to start with David on this round.
Hi there. Yeah, my questions are kind of all over the place, so I'll just keep firing them away. So how many parking stalls are actually proposed for this?
If we just go with what we have for, the district gave us an amount of 100 we had to get to. So along that road, I believe we came pretty close to that. And we do have the 10-year to actually expand that. So we could actually go quite a bit more, but that sends us farther down the road. You know, we'd love to keep it as close to the entrance as possible.
Okay. Could you maybe talk about the road upgrade you mentioned? Is that from the very beginning of the Mamcram FSR, or?
That's correct. So we're putting a hefty chunk in for phase 1. I mean, everyone's got to remember this is a startup business, and you know, we're relying on not sale of homes, but operational revenue to be able to kick these things into higher gear. You know, if we are popular or we are successful. But for the road, we're looking at an upgrade that does a full grade, fills in areas, does a mag chloride anti-dust treatment, and lowering the speed limit, putting in safety signage where there's higher pedestrian traffic and crossing over to trails. And then in the future, we'd be looking at paving from front to back. And we've been in coordination with the other industrial users of the area that want to combine the funds, recognizing that we want a higher grade of road and a safer road than what they require at this time as industrial users. So it's kind of a win-win for the zone.
Okay, maybe a question to Kerry. Is the applicant required to do a TIA or any other transportation study?
Yeah, so they did do a transportation information analysis, is that what the TIA is? At rezoning, and a lot of that review the intersection actually at the Highway 99 and the access element of that. And there was also, as part of rezoning, a parking study that was done as to how much tourism capacity and the need of parking would be in this area. And as Robin said, the requirement for just getting this going is 100 at minimum, and there is a lot more space in the tenure to expand as the business expands.
Okay, and then am I to understand there's a single lane that goes through the parking, but all the parking backs out into that lane, but there's multiple ins and outs the parking lane as well?
Yeah, do you want me to pull it up for a minute and we can just have a quick chat on that?
Yeah, I mean, or you, yeah.
Yeah, so have you guys got my screen still?
No, I can't see it at the moment.
I think we might just have to go verbal on this.
Okay, so yeah,
got
coming in, there will be areas where people can come in and out, so they don't have to do this whole long drive here or come all the way to the end and then go in or have to leave. So we've done a few spots. I think there's 3 to entry and exit. Those will have one-way signage, and with the angled parking, we feel that people that do come in earlier will turn in and recognize which way to go with the proper signage and the angled parking. But as a whole, we found that, most people, talking with our civil engineers and landscape architect and design team, most people want to go right to the front and then make their way down. And that's why we've kind of done this direction with the drop off, angled parking, and then allows the traffic users to head out while they're exiting.
Okay, are you allowing future use along Powder Springs for motocross and bikers to get up to that zone? I mean, people can just rip through this whole development, or?
Well, we're trying to get away from people ripping through there on dirt bikes, and we want the traffic to kind of slow down, and just to increase the safety. And one of the plans is with that inner pathway, I mean, at the beginning of the parking, we'd like to try and direct walking traffic that already walks down the middle of the road and bikes down the middle of the road onto the pathway. But yes, it's already a quite wide road. As far as dirt bikers, they'll have to go the speed of what is posted and take their time, but they will have access to be able to get through this area and make their way to the trails.
Okay, I've got 10 more questions, John, but I think I'll let everyone else answer, and if people answer them, I'll come back at the end, give everyone else a shot.
Okay, David, sounds good. I'll go to Julian next for questions.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I've got a lot too. There's a lot going on. So am I right in thinking that the road is just gravel, right?
That's correct.
It's just a gravel road. What actually delineates the parking bays?
As far as on this side here?
Yeah, I noticed you've got trees there, but I mean they're just lines on a drawing, right? Is there anything that's actually delineating that as a bay? Like, how do people know to park that way?
Yeah, so I mean the vegetation we're going to put in there, or the planting boxes will help delineate that. A parking staff member to be there at the beginning of the day to start that kind of angled parking. We've struggled with this question too. I mean, we've like, okay, how do we get that? How do we get people to park like that? And having, a couple cars start that at the beginning of the day usually sets the flow for that.
Right.
And then having those planter boxes that are angled that way. If we ran into problems with that, we discuss that with our civil, and doing something like chalking lines the same way you would a baseball diamond to a certain degree in a few spots, or even spiking a few spots with fire hose we've seen done as well too, and civil has done in some of the bigger gravel parking lots in places like Cypress and Seymour that have started with gravel parking lots and tried to organize. But we do have a few key features and a few ideas on how to make that happen until that flow starts and just kind of perpetuates itself.
Okay. Then what separates the parking bay from the pedestrian footpath?
Yeah, so we're looking at another rope, post and rope that goes along there with open entrances, or we were thinking of used railway ties as well too to separate that. But we like the idea of it's affordable, it's tasteful, and we like the idea to do timbers and one rope, kind of like a thick rope. Yeah, to kind of run the length of those sections with periodic openings, obviously, so a stroller doesn't have to lift too many times over that. So.
And then your pedestrian footpath is gravel, right?
For now it is, yes. Yeah. That's a
so-
footpath too. For phase 2, we'd like to run not only all the way with wayfinding to Quest and the Carpenter's Bridge, but bring it all the way from Valley Cliff. And that's something we've talked about with the district, and also looking at coordinating with and talked about with the Squamish Trail Society and the Malcolm River Access Society in Sorka. It was a while ago. We've touched base again with MRAS about it. But yeah, that's the route we're going to go in the future.
So if I arrive at the parking bay and I'm in a wheelchair, where can I get to?
Yeah, so we've got accessible parking up here.
Yeah.
And so this is not, let's be clear. This park is not a fully wheelchair accessible park. It's impossible to do that. There's activities that just can't do that, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm just curious as to where I can get to and where I can't get to.
Yeah, fair enough. And so, like I said, we thought about that in detail, and we've made it accessible up to the front entrance in the cafe, which is good. But realistically, for future endeavors and for currently, we're like, how can we get them close to anything, or where can we get them to? And just let me pull up. So do I have one that covers that? Right here. Okay, so what we'd like, and this is the variance we're going for, is we see it more probable as to put our wheelchair accessible people that want to access the Forest Lounge or come to whatever's going on there, or if they've got grandkids playing or kids or whatever, and we have made the Forest Lounge accessible through ramps in here. So you can get to the multi-levels. You can't get down the children's play area, but the way we've raised the upper ramp, you can get down to. So one thing we're looking at is making, or not looking at doing, is that this is all accessible for our non-ambulatory, and then also having our staff being able to cater to that. Things in the future we're looking at is like, can we have days that are more catered to that, and we have in the future abilities to get them to certain key locations. Can we have staff dedicate with a side-by-side electric and be able to bring them to that location? So these are all things that are in our head and we've been thinking about. But as far as accessibility, to answer your question in short, this area is accessible with accessible parking here, and this area is accessible as well too, which is the whole Forest Lounge except for the children's play area.
Okay, cool. I think that's it for me. Thanks.
Thanks, Julian. I was pondering going with Sarah before you, so maybe I could have, but I'm going to ask Sarah if she'd like to follow on to this with questions.
Well, there's not a whole lot of questions because there's not a whole lot of spaces for somebody with a wheelchair to go. You say that the entrance is accessible, but then where the seating area is, there's a step down to it from the primary entrance, and it's so you bring your grandma's going to watch the kids, but she can't actually get down to the kids in the play area. So I just see this as a huge missed opportunity. I mean, the majority of people who, for instance, use gondola are those that cannot hike the Chief. There's nowhere, there's not a single place for viewing other than the existing concrete bridge that is over the Mamquam. So I don't have a lot of questions because it just doesn't seem like there's been that much consideration taken. Like I don't understand at the entrance why that lower piece needs to step down to suddenly, so then you can't even sit at the table. Like, what are the sight lines through the netting like?
Would you like can I respond? Yeah, so we actually put a ton of consideration at the beginning of this, and once again, we're a startup business, and we're not the gondola that has a gondola going up to the top of the mountain. We're a canyon walk, and so you know the accessibility challenge was massive, and you know putting in that level of budget to make the entire thing accessible basically made the project non-viable. So putting a
Well,
step
you
down.
don't need to have the whole thing to be accessible, but to simply have
I'm gonna finish. I'm gonna finish. So putting a step down at the entrance is not a big deal. I mean, that is putting a step down or a ramp here is something we could possibly do. And thank you for pointing that out. I mean, that's totally viable. And why wouldn't we do that? So I'm sure that's something we just missed in the design, but that's something we can completely do. As far as the actual canyon space, having this whole upper area available for to be able to view down here. And if we go farther into the future, like I said, and we're actually a successful business with an operational budget, and we can go after the funding as well that's put towards these things, I can assure you, Sarah, that I want this to be accessible. One of my good friends runs the Rad Society, and I've been in close talks with her about making this place accessible and how we get down that path. So it's not something we overshot or didn't think about. It's something we fully thought about and still think about, and will continue in the future on how we get people to these locations as our budget grows.
Great, thanks. Do you have any, is there any contrasting on the top of on the nose edging of the stairs?
I'm sorry?
Is there any contrasting on the nose edging of the stairs?
There will be, yes, both on the canyon boardwalks, and I believe the engineers have planned that for the canyon walkway as well.
Okay, and then what's the viewing like through the netting material?
So what we have proposed is going to be really similar to what you see at Capilano. So it's when you're at a distance, it does have like quite a transparent feature to it.
Okay.
Yeah, so Sarah, one thing we were trying to balance there was creating something that's not very climbable to keep people from, obviously, like children not climbing on it, but allow transparency. So we've got a number of sizes that we've taken out to the forest, and as we get a bit closer, because we want to maximize that transparency for people or someone that can't see over the railing or a small person, that's what we're after, and that's part of the reason behind it. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Catherine, would you be ready?
I'm not ready yet.
Okay, I can skip over to Carlos then, please.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. So have you is there a license with the Crown for this property, or is it fee simple?
Yeah, we have a license lease for this land, yes.
Right. You know, I think my one big question was just about the existing access. I use that road quite a bit, and there is a lot of motorized traffic and bike traffic, and so I guess just could you go over one more time the experience of like someone on a dirt bike, hopefully not ripping through and you know going the speed limit? Do they come to a front gate, and is there someone there that just waves them through? Is that kind of the idea?
Any gate that we'll have in place will have the same roundabout that almost every single forestry gate will have, which is a bypass for a dirt bike to go around.
Right.
Yeah. What we are looking at in the future, you know, and we actually have a meeting coming up with Flynn Rowe, and then we'll sit down again with the SDBA, who we haven't for a while. But one of the things we'd love to see is like, it is a junction, and I mean, there is a lot of recreation that goes on in that area. There's no doubt. I mean, there's climbers on that road. There's kayakers, there's, you know, slackliners, there's people running the river, there's trail walkers. And, you know, we have seen a massive increase in that zone with dirt bikes. This year has seen an explosion in sales in dirt bikes from Vancouver to everywhere. I mean, you can't even barely get one. And so, you know, we're trying to be as conducive and copacetic with every recreational sport out there. but one of the things we see potentially happening in the future, and a great supporter we'd like to be part of, is like finding potentially, you know, another crossing just a hair bit farther up in the close part of the canyon, and help be part of the funding of creating a motorized crossing, to almost, you know, and we're not obviously stifling that now, bringing that down, but in the future, kind of creating a bit of a separation between motorized and not motorized. And that's something that a task force with Flynn Rowe is after in high junction areas. But as far as now and for the foreseeable future, you know, having a bypass for our dirt bikers to idle through there is you know, fully what will be catered to.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I guess my one other question in some of these structures, are you going with kind of pre-built, prefabricated buildings, or are you kind of thinking of just getting containers to start with and then fitting them out yourself?
No, yeah, good question. Are you familiar with Honomobo?
No.
So yeah, it's a hard one to say. It's a tongue twister. It's a Canadian shipping container company. And they're one of the more higher end companies that have, and a larger company that have been doing it for quite a while and ship all over North America. And we've been in good talks with them, and those are our prime contractor for the base of the shipping containers, the structural components, and the basically baseline electrical and plumbing that gets put in. And then we're keeping them as light as possible with the accents, but as far as all the doorways, the windows, the enclosures, the structural elements of it, they'll be doing it all professionally in-house, and then bringing it to site, and we'll be kind of putting in the finishing touches.
Great. I will look into them some more. That's all the questions I have. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Carlos. And Farzan would be next.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. So I have some of my questions answered, but I have many more questions. First of all, Kerry, I didn't see the new design for the parking. You mentioned there is another parking layout. That's the upper floor. That's the future one.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we'd like to do right off the bat, Carlos. That's what the variance, or sorry, Franzen, that's what the, did I say that correctly? Sorry. That's what the variance would be for.
I see. Okay. Where are these containers? Could you show me where are they going to be located in the site plan?
Sure, 100%.
So originally, just for context, the zone had supported the parking along the Powerhouse Springs Road, but had never anticipated the parking being in the canyon area, which is how the zone was constructed. And so there's a variance for that placement to actually put parking in this area. You know, I think there's value in having it there, but you know, would love to get some comments around that piece. And then the other variance, just to highlight, is for, we originally in the zone had a 1 meter landscape strip, and to delineate Powerhouse Springs Road and the parking area. And they are currently proposing, just because of space constraints, to put the fence along there. The parallel parking as well that's in this plan would also require a variance, because they're also supposed to have separation for that parking. And yeah, so and staff do have concern around the impact of that parallel parking on that side.
I see. Is there any requirement for electrical vehicle there?
So we did, Robin, I'll let you answer that one if you remember, but I believe we do have something in the zone that speaks to that for phase 2.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll get a bit of an echo there. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. So the idea behind, one of the big ideas behind this project was sustainability and electrification. We saw this place as an amazing spot where people will be able to obviously charge their car and go for a walk. And I mean, that's one thing, you know, one of the issues with electric charging is the time to charge your car and what do you do with yourself. So we see that this is an amazing spot, and that's definitely part of our phased in approach, and we want that. We're also looking at doing an application with the, it's been on our plate since day one for a micro hydro system on the river. And that in turn will be part of the educational component. It'll help us be independent economically. It's great. It's great sustainably. And we thought, what a great place to be able to charge your car from the river that you're going to walk beside and do that. But for phase two that we've talked about with the district, we can't go any farther into phase two without putting in the receptacles for the EVs, which is something as soon as we're up and going and looking good. And it's something we want to do immediately anyways, because we want that on the project. That's what we want.
Okay. Is there any, I couldn't see the size of the road. Is there possibility for access for the truck or bus or fire engine? Can it turn around in that at the end?
Yeah, so I mean, Kerry, you want me to answer that?
Sure.
Go ahead, Robin. Just highlight where it is, maybe.
Yeah, so here's the entrance we had to put in for the fire truck. You know, we're trying to do as low footprint as possible, and we'd much rather go the route of putting in a sprinkler system or something. But this is the guidelines we had to go with. So there's a fire route here, and the turnaround is here. Our staff is also we'll have 2 hydrant locations, and our staff will also be trained in forest firefighting S100, which we think is a great addition to that area, because obviously we're super concerned that, you know, the major part of this project is the forest, and we did have a forest fire in the area from a camper a couple of years ago. So one of the first things we're putting in is the water infrastructure and our staff, and yes, there is a turnaround for fire truck and emergency vehicles in the location. There's actually 2 locations. This is even a good fire truck turnaround location as well too.
And I assume it is acceptable for the bus as well, right?
Yeah, this is the bus area here, right here.
Right. And it can turn around. Okay. What's the material of all these floors and steps and everything?
So the decking for the boardwalk and the decking for the forest lounge, that's all big timber.
How do we make sure that it's not going to be slippery?
Yeah, so we did some extensive research with other companies that obviously are in this climate and have timber decking. And anything that's on a slope, we'll be putting a certain kind of grip down, whether that's a sand grid or strips. But actually keeping on top of your boardwalk on a yearly basis with pressure washing eliminates the slime that comes down there, and it's actually grippy enough. And if you were to compare it to a place like Capilano and some of the decking down there, them staying on top of their pressure washing has kept their decking fairly grippy.
I see. I couldn't see, but what's the rough slope of the road down there? Roughly.
Sorry, the slope of the road here?
No, down there at the beginning, where the parking is.
That's all flat.
Oh, it's flat, no slope.
No slope, no.
Okay. Thank you. That's all of my questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Farzan. We would go to Amy next, please.
Thanks. Yeah. Thinking about the entrance to the cafe and for the performers, and you know, you've got a stage and artisans and farmers market and that sort of thing. I'm wondering, is it the access road that everybody would drive up all of their gear, and then how do they load it up there? Is there little ramps that they can use just for some of the heavier stuff?
Yeah, so there will be I don't know if it shows on here. There will be a little ramp up to the left of the, sorry guys. There will be a little ramp up to the left here. And this access road, we've made it wide enough for the requirements of the fire truck. But we wanted to limit the impact, visual and footprint we did in there as much as possible. So we really narrowed this part down. Now getting some of the shipping containers in there, we've looked at how we're going to do that, and we've got a few options, but it's trying to be that's why we're making those as light as possible too at the beginning. But we'll go from a 1-lane road down to more of a side-by-side road. And what we'll do is we'll help if there's an artisan coming in, yes, this basically will be the back and forth for those types of things.
Okay. And then is there, for that area, is there specific storage, or is it contained within whatever shipping container buildings will be erected there?
Yeah, so the actual, any sort of food, that kind of thing will be stored inside this shipping container. But also the staff area is also a storage area as well too. It'll be pretty minimal what we need. And then as far as this, the artisan booth, that's another storage area as well too. We wanted to use for any artists that would keep their stuff and is doing maybe 2 days there or something like that.
Okay, cool. Thanks. That's all my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Luke, you would be next, please.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the presentation. So I also have quite a few questions. I'll try and be quick. Would you be able to tell me what's the width of kind of the road, the two-way road that's coming in at the parking?
I can tell you that quickly, Robin, if you want.
Yeah, please, thank you.
Yeah, so currently I think the existing road is about 4.5 to 4.6 meters for each drive aisle. So you got quite a wide road, and we did check with the Ministry of Forests and Lands, and you can reduce that down to about 4 meters per lane.
Okay, and so this will be 4 meters per lane for all three that are in there. There's 3 lanes of travel there, it appears.
There's 2 lanes of travel. So on the actual Powerhouse Springs Road, and then there's another drive aisle, and the drive aisle itself, which is a one-way, meets the zoning bylaw regulations for one-way with angled parking. And I believe that width is about 5 point something. I don't have that open to right now.
That's okay.
The right of way, and it's the road itself has a 30-meter wide road right of way.
Okay. The parallel parking, is there a sidewalk also provided on that side? It appears that there is a sidewalk on that left-hand side. So apologies, I think that's south. But is there a sidewalk provided next to the parallel parking?
Yeah, Luke, I mean, that's a great question. That's something I've been thinking about, over the last little while. And, these aren't pertinent parking stalls, by any means. And we were wondering about, we utilize that space, organize it, and or decommission it so it doesn't happen, without us being able to control it and tell people they can't park there. Do we put no parking signs? Do we turn into parking? But I had the same safety concern about, people having to cross the road, even though we're dropping the speed limit down to 30. And it's not like it's a through road of a subdivision or another part of town. It's a dead end road, basically, with about maybe outside of recreational traffic, 4 to 6 pickup trucks going in one part of the day and out the next part of the day. But yeah, I mean, I fully, if there was any part I would scratch of parking, I would take that out, because people have to cross the road to get to the pathway. And then people usually don't cross roads, they'll walk down the road. So that's a concern for me as well too. And if I was to get rid of anything as far as parking goes, that's what I would ixnay, but just try and figure out how we mitigate people parking on the side of that road from signage or staff.
Okay. I'll wait for my comments until I talk about that further. But and the 100 parking spaces that have been provided, do they also take into account the current users of the site? I know it's very small, but there's a bunch of motocross and then also mountain bikers that use that site, the existing parking lot that's there. Would they be able to use these parking facilities?
Yeah, so we took into that consideration when talking with the district as to, the recreational traffic, the kind of unorganized space that already kind of exists, and making sure that did accommodate that clientele as well too. And it's for recreational people to be able to park as well too. One of the things why this came to us would be great for accessibility, oversized parking, and local parking as well. So kind of directing Squamish people that wanted to go into here, but also having kind of a no for local parking down here a bit more, which is closer to their activities. As far as motorized traffic, those guys take up a lot of space, and there's already kind of two undesignated but designated parking areas for motorized traffic, and that goes back to the corner of Power Springs Road and Mamquam Forest Service Road, and then at the very beginning of Mamquam Forest Service Road. So what we'd like to do is sit down a little more and have that as we go forth. I mean, part of the idea behind this project is to add some organization to this area that's becoming popular as well. Yeah, all recreational traffic there, but as far as motorized, there's a great unloading spot at the corner that doesn't get used, isn't signed properly. And then at the very beginning of Mamquam Forest Service Road. And being motorized, they can obviously go a lot farther and faster than any other recreation person that's out there. So that's kind of how we saw it going down anyways.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here. Is there any need for, is the program going to run any time like at night or, you know, late in winter? Basically, I'm leading this into a lighting question.
Yeah, so the project we'd like to be all year long. We obviously understand it'll be much slower, but we wanted to kind of cater to school groups and stuff like that during the off season and do educational programming coordinated with them. But we only wanted to run during daylight hours. We looked into some nighttime hours, and not only do we not see the market there for it, but the district, you know, and the environmental studies that needed to be done for nighttime activity, it wasn't necessary to do for the actual stage that we're at with the project, and if we saw it even viable, which we didn't really when we looked at it again. So to answer your question in short, no. There'll be motion detectors and security lighting that comes on through motion, but as a whole, we're going to basically run from kind of working hours or dusk till dawn, basically.
Okay. Yep. And then the other one would be, I guess, coverage or weather, like kind of weather protection for people. I noticed there's some canopies at your prefabricated little buildings there. Yeah. How are they? What can you tell me what they're made of and how you're proposing to hold them up? I noticed one is held up by posts, but the rest look like they're cantilevered.
So what we're going as is to limit obviously the impact once again in the area, using the trees as the posts. And one of the companies we were in talk with the beginning when we were looking at low impact walkways was Greenheart Design. And Greenheart Design has engineered this really cool thing that they use in rainforests in a lot of places, and it almost acts like a Chinese finger trap or a prusik that you would put on a rope if you're familiar with climbing. And so it expands with the tree, and it kind of locks under pressure. And our canopies would kind of go from tree to tree. And obviously we don't want to cover the whole space. That's not the idea. And they would be super high to almost allow the light in and not even really notice them. They're going to be so high. And yeah, that's the product out there that we're looking at. Rhiannon, I'm not sure if you have it in front of you there, but it's kind of a very high strength poly stretchable material, which also kind of doubles as a factor during if we got an unexpected high wind kind of storm. It would also act as a protectant to people in there.
Okay, yeah, and then also the cantilevered canopies that are over the food and beverage in it and stuff like that. How are those going to be? Are they cantilevered? Are they like?
Sorry, the ones in here.
The ones on the little the shipping containers. There looks like there's some kind of coverage.
Okay,
so for the most part, those are going to be liftable awnings. The one over the staff is going to be fixed to posts, but for the most part, they're liftable awnings that are going to help us to lock up the buildings at night to prevent any vandalism.
Okay, so are they propped open?
They will be, yeah. The Honomovo, the fabricator, has a few options for how we can have those sitting up out of the way of people walking by.
Okay. Sorry, I'll try and be quick with the last of the ones that I've got. What's the elevation from this lounge to the forest floor? Is it suspended or is it on grade? It's kind of hard to tell off the visuals.
Yeah, so we really wanted to be, once again, as low impact as possible to this zone. and everything's lifted. I think it probably ranges between 2 feet to Rhiannon, you know the answer to that more, what the range is, but it varies obviously to keep it level in kind of an ungulated place there. But do you know the answer to that, Rhiannon?
I don't know what the absolute highest point is, but yeah, it does get fairly high off the ground, and we will be making sure that in any locations necessary that the guard railing is high enough for that.
But yeah, also it's Luke, it's substantially off the ground to a certain degree. It's not like super high, but it's not on grade.
Yep. I think I'll leave it at that. Nothing. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. I'm going to go to Karim next, please.
Yes, thanks for the presentation. A lot of the questions were asked already. I'm just wondering if any thought was given to maintaining a fully, you mentioned the cost of timber right now, and it just seems a little odd to me going with steel in this setting. Was there any, like, is there any opportunity basically to go to mass timber or something?
Yeah, so I mean, the steel is only in, a steel base is only in this section here, correct? Which goes along our canyon. And also, one of the things we wanted to go with here, obviously, is the element exposure, but also during any high water events that we had a steel base as opposed to a wood base, because through the hydrology studies we did, obviously, you know, the 1 in 20s, 1 in 50s, 1 in 200s, something we wanted to make sure we had was incredible durability. But to yourself and to me, you know, aesthetic is very key to me in this zone as well too, and that's why, you know, we're doing as much basically complete wood decking, wood railing. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the base of the project or the steel will not be seen by the visitor to the area.
Okay. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Karim. Catherine, are you ready now?
I am, thanks. Sorry, I was having technical difficulties. I just had actually only one question. A lot of the other questions I had answered. I was just looking at the landscape plan for the enhancement area, and I'm just wondering why the choice of Virginia creeper. I just was wondering because it looks like it's a native, it's a restoration enhancement with native plants. And my understanding, yeah, curious about Virginia creeper because it's not a native, it's not a Pacific Northwest native.
Are you talking about the rehabilitation areas?
Yeah,
or?
Yeah, totally.
Right in here, Catherine?
Yeah, you know, I'm having some technical difficulties with my computer, but I just was looking at the plant lists, and then there was an enhancement area, and it had all Pacific Northwest native plants. And then the last one, or one of the ones that I looked at, was Virginia creeper, which I understand is not native and might spread quite vociferously.
Sorry, because the enhancement area plant lists were actually done by Cascade Environmental.
Oh, okay.
So
sure.
that's why I'm stumbling. I'm just looking at it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And...
Yep. And I see it in one spot, and now I'm looking at it again, and I don't see it again, which is.
Oh,
really
you know what? That's because that's my spec, and that is not in the enhancement area. So that isn't intended to be in the enhancement area. And you know, it's chosen for its beauty in this in this instance, but we're definitely open to choosing something else that might be more native.
Sure, for the enhancement area we're talking.
No, is it in the enhancement area too? I don't think it is.
I can see it on this plan. It's actually proposed under the green walls and roof. So was there intention for it to kind of creep along the walls and the roof? Is that why?
Yes, but not for the enhancement areas. The enhancement areas are actually, if you look on the overall landscape plan where it says
I'm
area 1
sorry.
and
You know
area
what?
2.
That's my mistake. You know what? I was having trouble with my computer, and it seemed like a strange thing, but you're right. It's in the herbaceous perennials, green walls, and roof. Yeah,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
I got it. Sorry about that. Yep.
No problem.
With that, I have no further questions.
Okay.
Thanks, Catherine.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Catherine. David, I'll come back to you. Anything further?
Just, is there a comprehensive lighting plan? I think someone mentioned that, but
Just to clarify, there's no nighttime activity here. So there's the zoning clarified that this operation would be from dawn till dusk. So there was no, the only lighting that we allowed for was for security lighting, motion center.
okay, I just see lighting on the render, so I was wondering what's happening there.
Yeah, that's for those spots for the.
Okay. And just how is the site powered? Like, how are you getting power to these modules? Is it generators?
No. I definitely wouldn't do a project based on generators by any means. No, this is we already have. There is hydro, fiber optics, and water already straight, basically going through the site. This is a highly industrialized site from the past and future, and it's just like we have a power plant across the river on the other side. There's power lines that have to go up to the Power Springs water reservoir, and then those lines head up down Power Springs Road to the south, and we'll be dropping into that, which is a bonus for the district too, because they'll be tapping into our drop down for one of their relay stations as well. Yeah, and then like I said, future growth, we'd like to try and start to go off grid.
Okay, cool. And then last question, you mentioned, I think I saw in the very first slide deck, there was something about First Nations. Do you have a First Nations consultant, or do you have any?
Yeah, no, so we've been in talks with First Nations for, on and off with this and keeping them up to speed since its inception over 6 years ago. Every part of the project has got to go through a consultation and approval with First Nations. And then, we've been pushing hard to try and get some representatives on site, and we did actually last year, and it was really good. And two of them for Lands and Title, which are also artists, one of the local carvers and one of the local artists for the area. And so part of our agreement with First Nations is to have basically art, interpretation, and education directed by them to be able to put into the site. So we are working with them on that and keeping them up to speed as to where we're at.
Okay, cool. That's me, John. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much, David. I have a question. I know this is really hard for you to control, but I'm just wondering if you had looked at mitigation of dust along that road, because I mean, I ripped that road a bunch of times and it can get really dusty. With increased traffic, there could be quite an issue there that builds up for you. I'm just wondering if you had addressed that at all or thought about that.
Yeah, one of the solutions behind the project was to create something that could actually be, solving that problem. Because I'd lived in Valley Cliff for a long time, and I've used that space back there for a long time. And during the summer, it becomes actually a safety hazard from the Manquam First Service Road all the way up, because one car can create an actual whiteout. So mentioning earlier, one of the upgrades we're going to be doing to that is not only, upgrading the road, but a mag chloride treatment, which is the most environmentally friendly treatment we could find for that. They do in sections already, and we'll treat the entire road quite extensively at the beginning, and then do periodic treatments. With the upgrades to the roads we're bringing, it'll actually free up some of the budget from some of the already industrial users, i.e., Atlantic Power in that area that wants to contribute part of their budget into, or their budget into a combined effort with our budget. But eliminating the dust is a full-time thing for us. So we look at that as a safety concern and enjoyment for our recreationalists. And to be part of actually increasing that enjoyment. And it's also a health factor. I mean, it coats our leaves, it runs into the water, and it's not good for the fish habitat, and it's also a breathing problem for people. And it's yeah. So to answer in short, yes, we'll be making sure that road is dust free during operation.
Great, thanks. That's really interesting. Okay, well, that's it for me for questions. Does anyone else have anything further you'd like to ask?
I just have one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm just confused. Can you clarify the width of the stairs? Because at the front of the canyon walk plans, it says in the stair schedule that the length of the boards is 1 meter up to 2 meters. Can you tell me where it goes down to 1 meter?
The length of the boards, sorry, which part are you looking at, Sarah?
Well, I'm just looking at the stair schedule. So there's number of treads, length, width, area of deck. And so I'm just wondering the length, which would be the width of the
Yeah.
stair.
Yep.
It goes from 1 meter up to 2 meters.
I don't believe in
So
any.
I'm wondering-
Yeah, I don't believe in any spot. Good question. I don't believe in any spot we're below 1.3 meter, and 1.3 is the small section which goes actually under the canyon walkway. But we're actually trying to bump that out as well too. But we range between 1.5 and 2+ meters, I believe, for the entrance exit. Is that? Yeah, do you want to correct me on that? But I'm pretty sure, one of the things, Sarah, is I was trying to make sure that we didn't have pinch points anywhere as best we could. So 1 meter is just, if we do have a spot like that, I certainly would be correcting that. I'm not sure where that location would be. It could be just maybe a mess up. But I'll double check that in Rhiannon, if you could let me know where that is. And we definitely don't want anything that thin anywhere on the project.
I don't believe it's on the boardwalks at all. I think it must be in the canyon walkway somewhere, if at all.
That could have been the proposed suspension bridge at the beginning, which no longer is existent.
Okay.
That's what.
You're saying nowhere does it go below 1.5, the width of the
1.3, but we're trying to bump that out, is a very small section that goes underneath the canyon walk, or the bridge, the current bridge.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
John, I have a question, if I may.
Yes, President, go ahead.
From Kerry, actually. Kerry, I'm just curious, how did the staff came up with 100 parking stalls? How did you calculate that?
Well, it was done through a parking study that the applicant submitted. So Robin hired a consultant to do I believe it was like a tourism analysis and parking analysis around the demand, and 100 stalls, I believe 75 stalls was what was required for his initial startup. And then it kind of scales upwards from there. And so we landed with 100 stalls, which I think takes them till about maybe year 5 or 10 or something like that in terms of the growth. So, and then there is more space for stall expansion. You know, there's no value if no one can access the site. That's to the detriment of the project, right? So we thought that, you know, it will scale up when the needs scale up, and the applicant will build that way.
So there was a traffic study.
Yeah, there was a traffic study done and a parking study done, which was separate.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Farzan. Any other questions at all from anyone? Okay, so we'll go on to comments then. Thank you. I'll start with David on comments.
Yeah, I'll just preface my comments by just saying that, you know, I understand that this is a large site with a lot of complexity, but some of the more detailed presentations we've been seeing, I feel that the PDFs and slides that we've been given are just kind of quite fragmented and lack detail, which has caused so many questions. I think the applicant understands every detail of this project, but it's the kind of drawings that are meant to kind of communicate that successfully to us as a group. There's so much info that you've mentioned, which sounds awesome, but it's just not shown on the drawings. I think there's a lack of context, site sections, placement, kind of coordinated renderings. So my overall comments are, I don't believe the parking has been detailed out sufficiently. I don't think 100 cars backing out into a single lane sounds plausible. For the district's comments on the second parking area, I can't really give refined comments, as it kind of just looks like it opens directly onto Powder Springs and seems like a flat gray area. I can't tell if there's any slopes or retaining or what access there is there. Really like to see a comprehensive wayfinding plan, because I think that's crucial to a really successful development like this, and integrating the First Nations that you've kind of mentioned would be really important for that. Overall, I'm like supportable of the idea of the project. I just don't have a comprehensive, easy to understand submission to review, which leaves me with just too many unanswered questions, unfortunately. But I like the idea. Thanks.
Thank you, David. I will go to Julian for comments next, please.
Again, thanks for the presentation. I agree with David. I think it's a bit loose in terms of the information that we're provided with. I think, you know, again, just from the discussion, I think that you clearly have a lot of the answers in your head, but we're just not seeing them on the paper. So I'd like to see a bit more detail in terms of the actual submission. Certain things that I think are very important. I think that it's imperative that you make the project as accessible as possible and as inclusive as possible to everybody. I understand the cost constraints, but I think in this day and age, it's really not an option. I think you have to do it. It's just as simple as that. And with that in mind, I think I'm highly supportive of the idea of rewilding. I love that idea, and I think the use is very appropriate. There's a couple of things that I would kind of just wave a flag of caution about. A few of your renderings show green walls. Green walls are actually not particularly a sustainable thing to do. They require huge amounts of maintenance and lots of nutrients to make them work, and lots of irrigation to make them work. They look very pretty, but from a sustainability point of view, they're not actually that great. So I just raise a flag of caution about that. I'd also, one of the things that we didn't really discuss was the potential, if there is no nighttime activity here, I'm just kind of slightly concerned about overnight camping and illegal camping here. You're creating large gravel parking areas that would be very attractive to somebody in a camper. So I don't see from the drawings any way of stopping them right now from driving up there after hours and just pitching up for the night. So that could cause a huge amount of problem. I know there's a huge issue with illegal camping right now. So I just kind of think about that, some way of controlling the site in terms of access. Couple of detailed things. Just on the plant list, Japanese maples, I think, is a bit weird. You know, we're right in the forest here. We're on the side of a mountain. It seems a bit odd to be putting in plants that don't seem to belong here. But you know, it's purely an aesthetic thing. I think I'll probably leave it there. Thank you.
I'll just speak to the camping piece that the bylaw that the Squamish or the District of Squamish has. This area is a non-camping zone. So
sure, I understand that. I'm just kind of, you know, I know there's a lot of illegal camping, and it happens. If there's a road, people will camp there.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much, Julian. I will go next to Sarah, please.
Hi, yeah, I appreciate the challenges of the site. I was up there on Saturday and tried to drive around as much as I could. But I do think that there needs to be, you know, some much better consideration for accessibility, even if it's just pathways, using the, the topography to get to high points to look down something would be better than what exists now. Again, it is difficult looking through the package to get a full understanding of the implications for the parking. Going up there on Friday, there was at least 50 cars from the start to the end of the road, so it was really, really busy. The accessible parking needs to have line painting, so that's probably going to require some paving, because it wouldn't work to put any like fire hose attached to the ground. It's going to get caught in lifts, and that's going to be more of a headache. So that's something that needs to be thought about. The washrooms, you need to make sure, of course, that there's going to be accessible washrooms, both at the parking as well as at the Forest Lounge. There, it says washrooms if required, but I'm saying it will be required. There's going to be kids there. There's a cafe there. It's the end of the line. People need to use those facilities. And there should be some consideration for non-binary washroom signage. I think that's something that is important. The Forest Lounge, if it's meant to be the community hub, then it should have tables that have an extended end that you can wheel under the end of, as well as have some non-facing, because if there's anybody who's obese, they're not going to be able to necessarily fit into those benches around that table. There isn't also, one thing, it's, it is only 1.2 kilometers long, but you've got, I think, 108 steps. There needs to be some benches, rest areas, little pull-out sections when you, traverse a long set of stairs. You've got somewhere to sit and rest. If you're going to be bringing, some seniors with you, that's a necessity. The service counters are all really high. So the service counters, both at the front, at the cafes, none of them should exceed 860 millimeters from the ground. That's about a 34-inch counter height. Because right now there's some that are at 1160, and like max reach height is 1200 millimeters. So, that's just not feasible to grab it and dump it on your head. And then the pathway width, CSA requires 1700 millimeters. You've got about 1650 with your steel bridge, but I would encourage you to try and shoot for 1700 if you can. Somebody with a seeing eye dog, they need at least 100 millimeters of width. And if anybody wants to pass them, that, you need to have that space requirement. So yeah, there needs to be just a little bit more jigging going on with.
The section is to say that it's an additional washroom for the tree lounge. Is that correct, Robin?
Yeah, that there is 4 washroom stalls there and an accessible washroom there, and we've put a location dotted out that says if we need to expand, we have, or there's not enough washrooms, we have the ability to put more washrooms in that location. But there is washrooms there. There's the most washrooms in the entire site is there.
Okay. I'll just ask one clarifying question. So David mentioned that you need to back out into the main road, but I don't think that's the case when I look at the plan. You're kind of backing out into the lane that's dedicated to accessing the parking. Is that correct?
That's correct. We don't have any spot where you back onto the road, right? And it's all divided through rope and post in every location.
So I think I do appreciate that move. My biggest concern was going to be conflicts with the roadway and how it's going to function as a throughway for the recreational users. Like, I think it's a tricky thing with Crown Land, and I used to do a lot of work with Crown Land tenures. Is that it's the people's land, but you want to monetize a portion of it, and so I think this strikes a good balance. And I do really think that your idea for another connection that might be dedicated to motorized use is a really smart idea. And I think all of that kind of brings me to this idea of an operator in this region as being a really positive thing. I can see it having a lot of positive impacts on all the different issues that we're dealing with right now and gives some momentum to actually improving the area, which is already so well used, but no one wants to put a cent of their money into it. So I think this project's extremely attractive to Squamish and could be quite a great asset. And I think it's important to acknowledge that there is a staged approach to this project. And so, you know, had you started this and been constructing this in 2020, you would have been bankrupt, and you know, nothing would have happened. So this is a huge risk. Tourism operations in generally are quite a huge risk, and so I think this is a good first step. And I think you've heard a lot of expectations and desires around the operation, and I hope that if you are successful, you can phase those in. But it's important, I think, for businesses like this to be given a bit of rope to be able to, you know, produce some of this stuff. So also just anecdotally, like when I was thinking about this operation and the parking and the kind of distances, it does seem actually quite similar to me to the Capilano suspension bridge. You know, the parking lot is quite a ways away from their operations, and they have some intermediate spots where you can sit down and interact. But I think there's precedent for this. Not to say that it can't be improved, but I think it's, again, a step in the right direction. So maybe some lessons learned on the plans, and maybe some more details on the plans could be useful in future. Grading points could be really useful to kind of understand what we're dealing with, because I know you've got contour lines there, but adding grades to the pathways would probably help us understand it a bit more. Yeah, but that's my comments for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Carlos. Farzan, please.
Thank you, John. Yeah, I think it's a very complex site and they have tried best. My most important comment is about this 100 linear single loaded parking, which I think needs to be worked a little bit better, because I think with the traffic and pedestrian and I understand the complexity of the site. However, I think it can be improved. That's my major issue with the parking layout. Thank you.
Thank you, Farzan. And Amy, next, please.
Hi there, thanks. Yeah, a lot of comments I wanted to make have already been made, so I'm not gonna, drive that nail home too hard. One thing I would just want to say is regarding the storage. I know it feels like you don't need a lot, and you're gonna stick your boxes in your staff room, and I guess everybody will just be sitting on boxes. But just if you guys are gonna be planning on having programming and that sort of thing, I would just be sad to see this beautiful site get built and then realizing you have to put your pencils and your stamps and your light bulbs somewhere, and then have to find weird ways to stash them under the boardwalk. So anyways, maybe just the storage thing. That's it for me.
Great, thank you, Amy. And we are on to Luke now, please.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, overall, I think, yeah, I'm going to kind of second a couple of the other members' comments about kind of the road. Not to say that like this project is it would definitely be welcome to Squamish. I think it would be a really welcome addition. It's just that and I know this parking, the road isn't necessarily a thoroughfare, but I would have concern, especially with the parallel parking and how people would get out of those cars and then get across to that sidewalk, because they're going across, yeah, again, not a very busy laneway, but 2 laneways, and then parking screening, and then another laneway of parking plus parking, and then onto the sidewalk. I think it maybe be resolved like in more of a simple way. It potentially doesn't need a lot as a temporary solution until there's like a more of a high user level and it gets really busy. But if it's not clear for people, it will get messy. You know, I've rocked up to Whistler on many a weekend and had people park in 3 bays, and the middle lane is like completely locked up, and you think, how did that happen? But it does. So I think it needs to be delineated some way, but also a cross circulation for those pedestrians to get across. And that it could be resolved in, I don't know, in some way, but it might not be as complicated as redoing the whole parking layout. It might be just something as simple as landscaping. And then, yeah, to second kind of David's comments and stuff, it would be nicer to see a bit more information on the topography. I understand that it's a very complex site, but it's quite difficult to determine off the plans what these walkways are doing. And I'm sure like you've put a lot of passion and work into this, and you can kind of see that slightly, but it's not overly clear when you're reviewing the drawings. It would be nice to be able to see definitely in the future an accessible path being able to be brought into that tree lounge. But I will leave it there. I know it's been spoken about quite a bit. The kind of prefabricated food and beverage and other kind of utility kiosks. I actually quite like the idea of using those kind of prefabricated items. I think it's a bit of a juxtaposition. It's almost kind of converse to sorry, the train wreck up there in Whistler and different things that we have. You know, it's going to be quite alien. But I think if done well, it could come quite nice, especially with the black kind of offsetting with all the natural softening of vegetation there. I would, having looked at the food and beverage one in particular, maybe review where the live wall is actually going, because it's right underneath the counter and it's often wet in there. I bike in there regularly, I get soaked. If there's plants right there at the counter, you might get wet where you don't want to get wet. So it might be worth swapping the wood that you've got on that one with the plants, or if you did decide to delete the live wall per Julian's comments, I definitely want to see something in place of that. I think they need a little bit more than just being shipping containers there. It's nice to see a bit of wood to soften those. And then, yeah, I look forward to seeing some kind of artwork on those. That was actually quite a nice point that you put in there. It would be nice to see examples of what you were doing there. To speak to the sails that you've got there, yeah, definitely. If those are going to be in there, you might as well put them in kind of high up. You won't want them to be too low down, and you don't want them dripping. Sometimes you don't even really need them in there at all. There's going to be a natural canopy in there provided by the forest. I would say that if you were struggling with the cost of the project, that's one thing that I wouldn't be too upset if it disappeared. Although I think you should probably maybe keep one or two things for coverage just in case there was a rainstorm. And then I'd also speak to Sarah's comment about benches, even though it's a small walkway or short, sorry. It would be nice just to have benches there to allow people to kind of just meander through. You don't want to run through there, right? You want to sit there and take in the views and the serenity. So it'd be nice to see some benches. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Catherine, would you be ready?
Hi there. Yes, thanks so much. Yeah, a lot of what I had to questions have been, or comments have been said. I do think accessibility is an issue, and I know it's expensive, but it would be great to see more of it. In terms of the First Nations piece, again, I concur that the living wall it's a beautiful, it's beautiful. It's just not necessarily that easy to maintain. Having some connection to the First Nations and having some art on the walls, I think would be important. And then I do wonder about the parking and if there is a way to have some kind of delineation with landscaping. I also question the Japanese maples, given the site, and I guess there is a question around the dust, because my experience with that, a lot of those Forest Service roses, they're extremely dusty, and so things get really dirty. And it sounds like you've got a solution for that with the treatment you're going to use. Yeah, but it might be interesting to experiment with that and see how effective it is. So those are my comments, and I think it sounds like an interesting project, and yeah, I look forward to hearing and seeing more detail. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Kareem.
Yes. again, not to repeat everything that's been said, but I agree with my colleagues here. I understand this is a complicated project. I would have loved to see more of, if there was a traffic study done, we'd like to see it. If there's again, is that F&B outlet, is it enough for the projected number of people? Has this been looked at? Storage has been mentioned. Number of toilets have been mentioned. If these things were analyzed and studied, maybe including them would help. Accessibility, again, I don't want to repeat. I believe there are not so expensive ways of making at least maybe the first portion of the site accessible to everyone. I'm going to leave it there. I don't want to repeat everyone, but yeah, I agree with everyone's sentiments.
Thank you, Karim. I'd like to actually take it to a subject that we actually didn't cover in the questions. So I'd actually like to pose another question for you, and before I comment, and that would be as far as security and making the site secure for nighttime. Is there fencing? Is there what has sort of the idea around this? Because certainly being orphaned out there in the dark at night, you're going to have visitors. So I'm just curious if you can enlighten us on that, Robin.
Sure. I wasn't sure if I was allowed to comment through this part of the thing, but
can if I say so.
Okay. I just like to say, I think there was a couple times missed that there is accessibility to the Forest Lounge, just in case anyone missed that, because I heard that mentioned a couple times. But and I know this was redone over and over, but we have done our best to make the areas as accessible as possible. And with future funds, we're looking at more, but I don't know if anyone understands the actual cost to that upgrade to put full accessibility along a canyon walkway and the constraints from height to rock to trees that we're all preserving as well. It's a massive footprint. So,
okay, Robin, I think we understand that part, but what I'm talking about is security.
Yeah, sure, fair enough. So as far as security, nighttime operations not on. We will have are you there? Are you loading up? Hello? John, are you still there?
I think we lost John.
I think we just lost John, but we can hear you.
Yeah.
Should I wait for John?
Let's give it a minute.
Yeah, I would give it a minute, but also security is kind of outside of the scope, of kind of the form and character that we should be sticking to here. So if anybody hasn't spoken yet, I would recommend that the next person go and convey their comments.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Understood, Asia. Thanks very much. I just thought it might be something that we might want to add value as far as that aspect. So, and especially if it pertains to some kind of built fence around the site.
Yeah.
Which we have addressed in other projects.
So would you like me to respond, everybody? Yes. Can I comment?
Very quickly, yeah, on that point.
So environmentally, and publicly, we wanted to keep the lands as open as free as possible. So there won't be a fence going up or a barrier fence going up all the way around the whole thing. But as far as security, a nighttime security system, which we don't want to give away because and talk about too much, because it is the system we're putting in, and we're looking at different options. But there will be a full security system put in, and a notification system, and potentially, if need be, actually security on site. So we're looking at all options, especially with what's happened in the recent area, and it's one of the reasons why the suspension bridge, as a few other reasons, was taken out of the design, and also one of the reasons why, pertaining back to another question, why the design had to be so robust in certain key areas as well too. So security is at the forefront of what we're thinking, but keeping the site open for animal traffic and aesthetically pleasing to the area is one of our goals.
Okay. Thanks very much. I guess my only recommendation on that, or my comment on that, would be just to plan for an over.
Sorry, what?
I think we got a little bit of that from John.
For an over what?
I don't know. Maybe we'll get it in a minute.
Overnight camping? Is that what he was going to go?
I don't know. We lost him again.
I'll maybe just
No.
take this moment. I did hear a few comments just around parking, and just to remind everyone that this parking plan at 100 stalls does meet the zoning requirement. And so, and with that, there were a number of analyses done at the rezoning stage, which was the time to kind of review those details. So that wasn't really part of the package to bring to the panel. It was mostly to review the design of the parking.
Okay, I think the whole system went down there for a second. Can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, great. Any other last comments before we move forward?
Yeah, I've actually got one more.
Okay.
I just wanted to speak to these Honomobo prefab things. One word of caution would be that these guys typically design the basically shipping containers, right, which are repurposed for this, or they also do other things which are prefabbed. And the foundations are often done separately. They normally require them, and this isn't an ADP thing necessarily, but they normally require them to be done by someone that's approved, like their own contractor that's approved by those guys themselves. But the word of caution comes from, we don't know what these look like yet because they've not actually been provided in the package. It might be worth kind of noting that because there are areas where it appears that the levels are different. So if you're down at one level, you might be seeing underneath one of the other containers, and that could potentially be an area of conflict or something to be addressed. That's all.
Okay, thanks, Luke.
John, I just had one clarification.
Sure.
Just with regard to the green wall comment. I just want to make sure that you guys understand that I'm talking about modular green wall systems. So there were two images in the precedent sheets, one of which was kind of a modular green wall system, and another one which was a trellis system. They're very, very different things. What I was actually talking about as being highly unsustainable are the modular green wall systems. Trellis systems, of course, climbing plants, totally fine. No problem with those at all.
Okay, thanks, Julian. If I can
Sorry
ask
to
a question.
interrupt, John.
Yeah.
Asia here. It sounds like our minute taker missed your last comment that you had submitted there. I don't know if you can repeat yourself or paraphrase your last thoughts.
For me?
Yes.
Yeah, my recommendation was just to make sure that you had planned ahead for a security facility, like an overnight facility, something for security there, and as far as allotting space for it or a structure.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
I just had
Uh,
one question that I just
Certainly.
keep forgetting to ask, which is, was there consideration, and did I miss this, around composting toilets to have for the sustainability aspect? Is that in there, or are they flush toilets?
There's a septic field.
There's a septic field. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. If I could quickly ask Carrie, I noticed that you have the full run of recommendations. Is that apply in this case, or do we have all those options, or is this just about comments and then the project moves forward regardless?
Yeah, so I did fail to put this into my report, but this project did receive priority status like last week. So officially, so technically under our priority process, sorry, that's my dog. She had to pick up the squeaky toy right at the right time. So yeah, so technically in the priority process, they don't come back to ADP. They only come back once or they will only present once to ADP.
Okay, so it's taken that our comments would be absorbed and proponent would work with you hopefully the comments are all helpful ones for the process. So we don't have a recommendation to go through, in other words.
You would probably know this better than I do. I can't recall exactly how party process the recommendation works, but I believe do you just provide your consideration? That's it. Asia, do you
Yeah, I mean, we could say it's an A or a B and vote on that because we wouldn't be bringing it back anyway. But I would assume that we would vote for B, and there's several comments and recommendations in there. So I can go through the process and say and ask if someone would like to where are we at here? If someone would move for B, then we can vote on it. How does that sound?
Well, it's ineffectual, is it not? I mean, it would have been great to know. It would have been great to know that 2 hours ago before we went through all this. But I would have gone for C because there's far too many things to be resolved for under DPA guidelines. But it seems that it's neither here nor there. So
yeah,
I don't know what. I'm a little bit upset, frankly, but.
Yeah, apologies for that, David, and to the rest of the ADP members. We should have clarified that from the very beginning. So because this is a priority project, we're following the policy that was approved by council that says, yeah, only one trip to ADP, after which district staff work with the applicant to address relevant issues. So I would focus on prioritizing what the critical issues are that you think staff should work with the applicant on.
Okay. We had so many comments there, and
yeah.
I feel like they all have a fair bit of weight to them. It would be next to impossible to go through all those unless the panel individually want to pull up anything that is extremely important on that list.
Yeah, our minute taker has been taking detailed notes for everybody's comments. So maybe if everybody could just pick the one thing that they think is a priority for Carrie to focus on, that just might drive a bit more of her focus when she works with the applicant.
Shall I go through our list of names and each person pick up one?
Sure, that sounds great.
Okay, so I'll start with David then, please.
I get one item. I don't know. I'll pass on comment. I don't think it's a really effective way to. I can't highlight one comment in.
I tend to agree. I think we should rely on the minute taking of the comments in general.
Yeah, I think we have.
That's totally fine. I just thought if somebody thought that there was a priority that was really critical that they wanted to touch on again, because it's been a very long process, they could kind of recap, but we don't need to go there. That's fine. Just feel free to rely on the minutes.
Yeah, I think that would be the best. Unless anyone disagrees. Okay, very good. Then I guess that is where it sits at this point. And we're all done for today. Although we're not gone yet, but I will say this project is at an end. I would have if there's any need to, there's no further need to go forward. So I'd ask for someone to move that we terminate.
Can I just make one comment, John? And this is just, it was just to do with the first project we saw, which was fantastic. But within the report, there wasn't like a table that's typically in there that says meets guidelines, doesn't meet guidelines. Like there wasn't a list that the new planner had put in there. Like, you know, that we typically get that says it's met the guideline, it hasn't met the guideline, they want some advice, etc. So just to make sure that there's consistency in the reports that are coming to us with, you know, complete information, and as well as what their, you know, whether or not the project has met the guidelines that they've.
Yeah, thanks for that feedback, Sarah. We'll be sure to pass that along to the file planner there that it was missing the table. And yes, we definitely aim to get those in for every report. So thank you for highlighting that.
Okay,
And then
thank
I'll
you,
make a motion to adjourn.
Sarah moves, and a second.
I second.
Okay.
Is that Catherine?
Sayonara.
I second.
No one against? No one against. Okay. Thanks very much, everyone. Appreciate your work.
Thanks for your comments, everyone.